Can I get someone to get a pen and paper and write down everybody's name that's here so I know who loves me? I'm joking.
No, you're fine. Just stay. We're almost ready. Did they verify that the stream is working? What's up, Malcolm? I'm on audio only. I'm on audio only, but I don't know how to.
Oh, hi, Macon. Dude, no, don't worry.
Ladies and gentlemen, please have a seat. Our keynote speaker will be beginning shortly. I'm just kidding. Go ahead. Is she wired up? You want to be wired up?
All right, so everyone, let's go ahead and start with the Surah Al-Fatih. Inshallah, the speeches today, everything goes smoothly. Today is the last day of the conference, so God willing, we start and end strong, God willing. So, yeah, inshallah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. ما شاء الله. And Mary is going to be speaking. Her speech is ready.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay. So what I'm going to be talking about today is talking about people who talk about God without knowledge. God willing. Okay. Louder? Okay. Okay. So my brain will eventually click into my physical presence in a moment. Excuse me. So the reason I wanted to talk about this is because there's so many religions in the world and so many different beliefs. People do this a lot. And it's not just with they end up worshipping different entities and so what. They also, how they, when they talk about things and what they believe is very wrong. So the reason I decided to talk about this is because, for example, like I grew up in, growing up as a Catholic. I never read the Bible in my younger years. We had a Bible in the house, we never opened it. And yet we would go to Mass every Sunday, special occasions, and we would listen to the priest, and afterwards everybody would talk about something else. If God was brought up and people talked about God, it was nothing that was from the scripture because nobody ever opened it. And that's just one example of many things that how people talk about God without knowledge. So they conjecture, or they talk making you think it's from God. And how can you know anything is from God unless you verify it, unless you have the knowledge to learn about it? So what does God say about it? People use conjecture. And this is just one other example from the Quran in 4:157. Crucifying the body of Jesus. And for claiming that they killed the Messiah, Jesus, son of Mary, the messenger of God. In fact, they never killed him. They never crucified him. They were made to think that they did. All factions who are disputing in this matter are full of doubt concerning this issue. They possess no knowledge, they only conjecture. For certain, they never killed him. And the footnote, Jesus, the real person, the soul, was raised in the same manner as in the death of any righteous person. Subsequently, his enemies are arrested, tortured, and crucified his living but empty body. And yeah, it's that. So the majority of people on earth will use conjecture and they will lead you astray. 6:116. If you obey the majority of people on earth, they will divert you from the path of God. They follow only conjecture, they only guess. Now, sorry. Okay, yeah. People disbelieve in the hereafter. They don't really know God, and this is something that is one of the major problems. They don't know who he is or why they are here. They have no vision due to blindness of the soul. 45:24. They said, we only live this life, we live and die, and only time causes our death. They have no sure knowledge about this, they only conjecture. So another thing that I find that I have witnessed in my experiences is that these are some of the common things people say. Do we really know is there a God? Do we really know where we go? Do we know if there's a heaven and hell? What if there's nothing? And it's like if you learn to become a doctor, or you study to be a psychologist or whatever, you can't go into the trade unless you study about it. And it makes sense the same with religion, why God has given us the brains, the eyesight, and the hearing, and yet they, have, say, I'm a Catholic, I'm a Christian, I'm a Jew, I'm a Muslim. And they don't know that all these different terms are, in each one of them is worshiping something other than God. They don't know that if they went to God's scripture and studied it and asked God for guidance, that when you're looking for the truth, God says if you're sincere, you will understand it. So if they do this, they will, God will show them and guide them to the truth, and they will see that, hey, there's contradiction here. This is not right. They will learn. And because God doesn't bless them with that vision or guidance, because they don't learn, they don't want to learn, And who wants somebody in a hospital that is going to do heart surgery or brain surgery if you're not going to study and be the best you can be? Why would somebody want you working in a hospital with them, next to them in this field, if you don't study? And another area of it is they end up following their parents blindly and worshiping idols next to God. And what if your parents are not guided? Society is what people, they let society dictate to them. They let society say, okay, this is what the norm is. The norm is that you grew up following your parents, worshiping Jesus. This is the thing to do where you're from, where you live. Social pressure, friendship. What's wrong with you? And another common thing with me growing up too is if you turn to God, you're depressed. There's something wrong with you. You're depressed, or you're brainwashed. And you can't possibly love God, or your love can't go for God in certain cultures, areas, because you're psycho. Basically, they think that that's the last option, so you're suicidal if you want to turn to God. 53:23. These are but names that you made up in your forefathers. God never ordered such a blasphemy. They follow conjecture and personal desire. When the true guidance has come to them, herein further, Lord. 55:28. They had no knowledge about this. They only conjectured. Conjecture is no substitute from the truth. Okay. So it's again, the blindness, not of the eyes. It's God will give us what we deserve and what we choose in this world, because we want a free choice. What are some of the things people say about God? Some more things. And how stupid it sounds. The earth is flat. Ridiculous thing to say. Women decide the baby gender. In certain cultures, they're told, give him a boy, you only have girls. So they think the women decide the gender. And we know now from Quran that it is the man that decides the gender of the baby. Superstitions. Don't walk under that ladder, you'll have 7 years bad luck. Don't let a mirror fall and crack, you'll get 7 years bad luck. All these things that they, superstitions that are really wrong. Jesus is God. Saint Muhammad will save us from hell. And we'll only have to suffer the number of sins that we committed, and then we'll be admitted into heaven. Comparing women to dogs, women and dogs are the same. We've had this one, which is pretty bad. You can suffer through misery in your life, you know, and have all sorts of problems, and you know, all these things, which are really wrong, because, and I know somebody, I can't remember who, but in one of the speeches somebody said, you know, you have to separate God's kingdom from Satan's kingdom, and there is a distinction, and this is really important. So people mislead others when they talk about God without knowledge. 6:119. Why should you not eat from that upon which God's name has not been mentioned? He has detailed for you what is prohibited for you, unless you are forced. Indeed, many people mislead others with their personal opinions without knowledge. Your Lord is fully aware thereof. And mentioning before that, I didn't mention. So, like, people, when they, you know, they don't, like, I remember when I first became a submitter, I had somebody that says, oh, you read the Quran. Okay, so you can't eat this, you can't eat that, you don't eat this. And I remember I read, because I know in the verse there's only 4, you know, thing God tells us to stay away from. And this guy was traditional Muslim, Shiite, I think, and he named, like, I lost count of how many things that I should stay away from, because, in a minute more, that I should stay away from, because, oh, now, you know, he thought I was following the correct Islam, which was very wrong, because we know now that we have the truth, submission, and there is no Shia, Sunnah, or any of this. We follow the Quran, we follow what God says, and through the teachings of the Messenger, which is, mashallah, everything that was explained to us from Quran, praise God. So, when people don't follow God, you're basically following Satan. And Satan was rebellious. He was banished and egotistic. And we, you know, a lot of people on this earth, there are people that can be worse than Satan. And he wants to get us on the straight path and get us away from God, and to do, he said this to God, I will skulk for them on the straight path, I'll come from them from the right, from behind them, from the left, and in front of them, and you will find each one of them are on a precept. I'm paraphrasing. So it's very important we watch out, we be careful, and we make sure that we do everything we can to not let Satan get us. Because when he comes at you and he wants you, if you're not with God, he'll get you good. And it's very important that our guard has to be up, and we have to be worshiping God. That's how we put our guard up. We have to worship God, make God our God most of the day, try to do everything right in our life, fix ourselves, whatever's wrong, fix ourselves. Such a bad thing to do, unfortunately, and it's a common occurrence, is all of these things that I mentioned, but not doing what we say. Make sure that when we preach to other people, we at least say, hey, this is a reminder for myself too, or you know, make sure we do it in ourselves and not talk about God without knowledge, and not exhort one another to uphold the scripture when we ourselves don't follow it. Because if you speak about God without knowledge, you'll be sent astray. Because our decision that we have to make in this life is to choose God or to choose Satan. And you have a big responsibility when you talk about God without knowledge. And all these people in the world that are blindly following each other, or their culture, their parents, their friends, whatever, all these people, they have a huge responsibility, and they have that burden of the information that they're spreading out there to other people, and they have that responsibility. But even ourselves, you know, mashallah, a submitter, a person who believes in God will never do this, right? So all these people, they end up putting themselves into more harm than good. And because they're so deep in that, unless they really, really sincerely seek God, they're putting themselves in harm's way. So 31:16, among the people there are those who uphold baseless hadith and thus divert others from the path of God without knowledge and take it in vain. They've incurred a shameful retribution. Be careful too you don't repel. So I have 2 minutes now, so I'm hurrying up. Be careful you don't repel other people from the path. So I just want to say this. How should believers respond to people when we see this? We should be truthful. We should correct them. We should remind them. We should give them proof. We should speak to them in the best possible manner. Okay? We should... sorry, long hair. MashaAllah. So speak in the best possible manner. Correct them. Don't be shy. Even if somebody, you know, you might feel shy, don't be shy, because it's a good thing to remind them. It's a good thing to be truthful. Give them proof, tell them, invite them to the path if you can. So I'll end with this. So we have to be the best example that we can to set for others. We have to make sure that whatever we do give advice to others, that we have to be on our way, really trying hard to fix ourselves. And when we fix ourselves and we do things to set that example, God willing, and do that, it will show in us. It will show in us, and God will eventually give you that, what's the word, the mark that God says, because we are setting the best example. So go and spread the message, be the example you want to be, and remind people when you hear this, because you'll hear it in every area of your life. Thank you.
Okay, so due to time, we can't do the Q&A right now, but inshallah, when we have time, save your questions. You guys have those notepads, so you can write them down, and God willing, we'll come back to them. So next speaker is Natasha. So, mashallah. Also, I have to say, mashallah, the breakfast today was amazing. I hope you guys thought so too. Yes, the turkey bacon made with turkey was awesome. Okay, so also, while I have your guys' attention, I just wanted to mention that, God willing, we're going to try to have a little method of getting some feedback from everyone this year. So we're going to do it 2 ways. We're going to do it also a way online, and we're going to have just some pieces of paper. You guys can tell us what you like, what you guys want to improve, and maybe some suggestions you have, God willing, for next year. So I'll probably we're going to find a box or something, God willing, and you guys can put the suggestions in there. We also have a Google form, and I will post the link for that, God willing, later, since we're not done with it today. And then you guys can give your feedback that way, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. Is good? Volume? Wise? Everyone can hear me? Okay. So this speech could go a few different ways. you really have to pay attention. Please do not use the restroom during the speech, because if you come back, you can miss some really crucial parts and have some weird ideas about me. Also, I consulted with a few submitters about the initial way that I wanted to start my speech, and I was advised against starting my speech the way I planned. So if you want the unedited, uncensored version, you can ask me about it after. Okay, here we go. So growing up, I had an issue with white people. And I apologize for the memes because they're just really funny to me. So just go with it. Okay, so I would walk home from school as a first grader, and kids would throw rocks at me and call me the N-word. In second grade, while most kids were watching, I don't know, Gullah Gullah Island, Teletubbies, this is what I was watching. Can you click the link, please? Oh no, you had to go back. Spoiler alert. Fast forward to high school. No, we're still in second grade, Makan. Lisa, you go into the back. And if you can, boop, blow it up.
Sorry, I can't find the mouse right.
Okay, it's
Connor, Birmingham, Alabama City Police used fire hoses and police dogs against children and adults engaged in nonviolent protests against segregation. The demonstrations were part of Martin Luther King Jr.'s Birmingham campaign. Television news coverage of the attacks by police sparked mass nationwide protests.
It was a really short clip. Didn't want to, I wasn't sure what kids would be here, so I wasn't trying to really show them what the realness of it was. So, okay, so that was a...
Now, with the...
Okay. Dude, this speech is going to be awesome. Okay. Okay, so, yeah, so there was this documentary. If you watch the Eyes on the Prize documentary, raise your hand. Didn't think so. So, yeah, so second grade, I don't know, my dad, I think he thought it maybe like it would toughen me up or what, but no, it was traumatizing. And it was like this whole series that was on, I think it was like PBS or something like that, and they just kind of talked about the civil rights issues, and you know, and as a second grader, I was watching, you know, kids get chased by dogs and hosed down, and probably wasn't age appropriate. Okay, so fast forward to high school. High school and the N-word. I really don't know why I chose that meme, but I mean, here we are. Okay, so in high school, and let me just say this, there is a point to all of this, so just hang in there. Okay, so in high school, I became more vocal about my blackness. I mean, I was pro everything black. And there was an incident in where this white girl, we were in the gym, in the locker room, she called a black girl the N-word, and I lost it. I didn't know who the black girl was, really, like I knew of her. She was younger than me, and I went up to the white girl, and I mean, she was shorter than me. I got up in her face. I almost punched her, and the only reason I didn't was because I didn't want to get suspended because I played basketball. And I scared her. I made her cry, and all because I was like, I have to stand up for my homie, for my sister. Okay. So, and I was like, you know, I need to let her know how ridiculous she is for using this word. Also in high school, I had a lot of jobs, and one of them was being a waitress. And this is where I learned how to code switch. So who in here knows what code switching is? Oh, more than I expected. Oh, Riasha, how do you know about code switching? Is it because I talked to you about it yesterday? Okay, guys, code switching. For linguists, code switching describes the simple act of switching between two languages in a conversation, but in today's increasingly multicultural, multi-ethnic society, the term's deeper meaning involves shifting between different cultures as you move through life's conversations, choosing your communication style based on the people you're dealing with. So, when you go to a job interview, you have to speak a certain way, as opposed to when you're speaking with your friends. So, an example could be, I do not like that. And if I was with my friends, I could say, nah, that ain't cool, right? So, as I was I don't know, I just popped into my head. I didn't write down an example, so okay, we're just going with the flow. Okay, so I was a waitress at this restaurant, and you know, I had two customers, husband and a wife, and they asked me, because I was speaking very proper, and the guy said, you sound so proper. I bet you don't listen to rap music, do you? And I said, you're right, I don't. I listen to country music. You know, I mean, I definitely lied, and he gave me a $20 tip, and we kept it moving. So I don't know why you guys are laughing. It was just an experience I went through. Okay, so these are the things that I kind of had to deal with growing up, and kind of, you know, just made me think the way I did, because I had a lot of experiences like this. Okay, so, but growing up, my dad really taught me about Martin Luther King, and as I started going to college, I was over Martin Luther King, and I was starting to get into Malcolm X, by any means necessary. Let's play it. Please. Thank you. In case you guys don't know who Malcolm X is. Oh, you got it? Yeah, you got to play it from the beginning so we can hear it. The sound. It's important. No sound? And take a look at the title on top.
I believe that the white man has done a great injustice to the black man in this country by having kidnapped our people and brought us here and down to the level that we're on today. And today, instead of approaching the factors that their original mistake has created, instead of approaching these factors objectively and realistically, the greatest sin that they're doing now is trying to pretend that they never committed a crime, that they never did any wrong. And when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad points out the injustices that our people are suffering, they make that sin worse by accusing him of teaching hate, or by accusing him of black supremacy, or by accusing him of advocating violence, simply because he is pointing out the real factors in the problem.
We got it. Okay. So let me just say, we've been talking about false messengers. In case you guys don't know, I don't call him honorable, but Elijah Muhammad is a false messenger for the Nation of Islam. In case anybody didn't know, just throwing that out there. I don't advocate, because you never know, I don't advocate Nation of Islam. Okay, I'm just giving you guys some history lessons on how I, what are the things that kind of, I don't want to say inspired, but made me go into this movement. Okay, so next comes college, and before I put the slide up, okay, so I was gonna put the video of Young Jeezy, but I watched it last night, and I forget what it was called. I think it's My President is Black, and I just put the lyrics because I was so embarrassed watching this video last night that I couldn't put up the video. And even the uncensored version, I was like really, I was like, I almost cried. It was just like, this is disgusting. Okay, so this was me in college, the movement. My president is black. You see his t-shirt. I was rocking them. You could get all the cool Obama shirts from Berkeley and the hip hop stores. And I was going to, my civil rights class, rocking this gear. So I had to put some dots because there was some bad language. So I'm not a rapper, but he was like, my president is black, my Lambo is blue. No? Okay. I won't quit my daytime job. Okay, and my mama ain't at home, and my daddy's still in jail. I was bumping this in my car. Daddy's still in jail. I mean, I don't, this is a song for Obama. And this was like, this is what I was into. Okay, and no, it wasn't good. Okay, let me find out where I am. What's going on over here? Okay, okay, so I was pro everything black. I would stand up for it left and right, just like these people would stand up for their rights. So we have ACLU, KKK, they stand up for what they believe in hardcore. Black Lives Matter. Okay. Solidarity with Flint. The water that they're drinking over there is nasty, and people will be standing up for whatever they believe in. Okay, this is the fun part. Now we get into submission, the submission part. So now comes Aaron B. So, mind you, keep in mind what I've been talking about. Who do I stand up for? Black people. Fast forward, we're past college 3 years ago. This is Black Power, by the way. Okay, so rewind to 3 years ago. And Aaron posted something on Facebook. And I, in my busy work schedule, decided I didn't like what he posted, and I'm going to stand up. It had to do with like race and minorities and kids. And I was like, I'm gonna make a comment. I'm just gonna give him a little reminder. And it wasn't just Aaron. It was a lot of people, when I came to submission, they would use the N-word and it would bother me. It would just, even like, they would say the N-word or they would say something kind of similar. And like, the Persians were racist. I was told not to say this, but I'm saying, I'm half Persian. The Persians are racist. I'll tell you one example. Who can tell me the example? How are Persians racist? Think of Persian New Year. Huh? Huh? Nah, Baba, come on. What'd you say, Kareem? No.
Persian daughter can't marry a black guy.
No. Haji Feroz, guys. Haji Feroz. Baba, come on. That's a wrap. Okay, I was told not to say that. It's blackface. It's blackface. It's a Persian. Okay. Anyways, moving along. See, you say one thing about the Persians and everything. Okay. So it wasn't just Aaron. I had an issue with anything that people would say about black people. It would just really bother me. So Aaron posted something on Facebook, and I made a comment about it. And it turned into a sermon for Aaron. Mashallah, it ended well. We're good friends. Praise be to God. He's my brother. Sorry, I lost my spot. Okay. So I felt compelled in my spare time at work to comment on how I didn't like his post. So this reminder for this speech is for myself and for anyone who has strong ties to their culture. Was I standing up for God as much as I would stand up for my people? Was I commenting on Facebook and helping my brothers stand up for the truth as much as I would stand up for a black person being called the N-word? So in 4:140, God, oh, I can't see this. Okay, so it says, he has instructed you in the scripture that if you hear God's revelations being mocked and ridiculed, you shall not sit with them unless they delve into another subject. Otherwise, you will be as guilty as they are. God will gather the hypocrites and the disbelievers together in hell. So God tells us what to do when people are mocking and ridiculing his revelations. And I had to ask myself, was I doing this with as much like emphasis and as much I don't know, like the way I was doing with when someone was just calling someone the N-word. Like if someone called me the N-word and I got all crazy and riled up, and then someone said something like, I don't believe in God, would I have that same reaction that God is telling me to have? And I think I wasn't. So that's kind of why I wrote this speech, and I've been reflecting on this part, and thank God I think I've gotten a lot better. This verse, 554, O you who believe, if you revert from your religion, then God will substitute in your place people whom he loves and who love him. They will be kind with the believers, stern with the disbelievers, and will strive in the cause of God without fear of any blame. Such is God's blessing. He bestows it upon whomever he wills. God is bounteous, omniscient. So the part, it says, and will strive in the cause of God without fear of any blame. I want to be able to strive more in the cause of God and stand up for the truth. And that's why I've been like, even if I can't comment on Facebook, and someone says something that supports the truth, I'll make sure to go and like it. Because before I probably did. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like that because it could show up on their feed, and I don't want to start this drama, and I don't want to get into it, and I don't have time, and excuse after excuse. But why are we here? We're here to stand up for God. So now I'm at a point in my life. Hossein not here, is he? Hossein. This is for Hossein. So I honestly don't know why I chose you getting engagement. It's probably because we've been talking about engagement so much. But now I'm at a point where I can go to lunch with Hossein, and he calls me Oprah, and he will ask me every time, do you want chicken and watermelon? And I laugh at it. I mean, that's just where we are now. And it doesn't bother me, mashallah. And that one was for Hossein. And I have one more thing to add. So in saying all this, God also tells us to stand up for our rights. So there's that verse that says, if gross injustice befalls you, to stand up for your rights. So obviously getting hosed and getting chased by dogs, all that civil rights stuff wasn't okay, and people are allowed to stand up for their rights. But the most important thing that I learned is that we have to stand up for God. And if you stand up for God, God will take care of you. And I can't even remember the last time I've been called the N-word. And I think that's also important too, is that when you're under God's protection, he will make sure. There's been so many verses and talks about, I think it was Mariam June that you had the Bible verse about the stone, and the stone won't touch your foot, or what is it? Dash your foot. Yeah. Okay. You guys know. And that's what it will be like. God will make sure that these adversities won't harm you. So I'll end with, all submitter lives matter. Aww. So also the people, the animals, and the livestock come in various colors. This is why the people who truly reverence God are those who are knowledgeable. God is almighty, forgiving. The end.
Okay, so we're still behind, so I know people might have questions, so God willing, please write them down. God willing, when we get back, we'll still ask, because I still want to know what the original speech was going to be. All right, so inshallah, the next speaker is going to be Nahal, and then we'll actually be back on schedule, and we can do the Q&A and everything, God willing, again.
Hey, Fernand, is it okay if we move this kind of off to the side? Because I'm going to be, or can I? Oh, okay, so I can stand here. Okay, all right. Okay. Oh, do you have the clicker? Oh.
Somewhere.
It's this one.
Okay. Just go stand in the square. I don't know.
So this is.
That's next.
All right. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So I have a question for everyone. I would like to know who here has ever done something or has ever been in a situation where they felt like, looking backwards, they felt they were selfish in that situation. So yeah, everyone should be raising their hands. And the reason why is because selfishness is a human trait. And this is something that we're trying to overcome as submitters. We're trying to kill our egos, and I feel like selfishness is part of the ego. So I think it would make sense to define what selfish means. It is specifically when you are lacking consideration for others, or you are mainly concerned for your own personal profit or your pleasure. So it's this concept that, it's all about me, and I don't care about the other people around me, and I don't consider them. And I thought that the synonyms, which I guess are not, is this working? Okay, so there's synonyms that I thought were worth mentioning. One of them, and there was like a reoccurring trend, one of them was egocentric, egotistic, self-centered, self-absorbed, self-obsessed, self-serving. So all of these things, there's like this reoccurring trend where there was ego and then there was also self, which leads me to my next point, which self is ego, or ego is self. And in fact, it was Satan that said, oh, I'm sorry. So can anyone tell me what ego means according to the introduction? Yes. So what does it mean to be arrogant? It means to have this, over-exaggerated, sense of self, self-importance. I am better. In fact, it was the devil that said, I am better than he. You created me from fire and created him from clay. So it's this comparison. And I specifically wanted to talk about society, especially, Western culture, because we definitely focus on individualism. So it really is all about me. But another way to think about society is the way that the devil entices us. So I was about to 4:120, he promises them and entices them. What the devil promises is no more than an illusion. So we can look at society as basically an illusion. And I think it's interesting to be conscious of what society is promoting. And one of the things that it promotes is this selfie culture. It's all about me, 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 me. And I think it's interesting because, we're basically, especially our generation, we take selfies and then we post them onto social media. And we post pictures of ourselves, of our lives, the vacations that we go on, and we essentially glorify ourselves. And I think that it's interesting because this is a very narcissistic type of way to go about. What else? So society promotes to be very obsessive about the way that we look. It's like trendy to be slender or slim, or it's trendy to be, curvy and voluptuous, and the way that we wear our makeup or do our hair, or the clothes that we wear, all of these things, there's so much emphasis, and it can be very unhealthy to have this obsession about, the way that you look, because it's an illusion. We know that the real person is our soul, and it's not necessarily what we look like. And so society, there's this illusion, and we kind of get caught up in it, and we think that if we look a certain way, that we can, attract a guy, or we can, if I look a certain way, it will give me happiness, or all these different illusions. Specifically if you're a guy, you think that if you buy a nice, luxurious sports car or something, that, your value will increase, or you'll become happy, or you will, find, I don't know, a girl or something like that. And it's really interesting because we know as submitters, it's not like that. And society promotes gluttony, and it promotes, not to be mindful and just to eat, eat when you're hungry, eat when you're not hungry, carbs and sugar and stuff like that. Now, all of these things that I just mentioned are tools. And I feel like tools can be used or they can be abused. And as submitters, we can use these things to really grow our souls instead of boost our ego. For example, social media. There's absolutely nothing wrong with social media. But I think at the end of the day, it really depends on what are your intentions. You can use social media to grow your soul. Maybe you can glorify God by, posting a picture of a flower, or to, stand up for the truth. For example, as submitters, we appreciate our bodies. We thank God for our health. And, for example, a nice luxurious car, there's absolutely nothing wrong with, having a nice, nice things in life. But a submitter will purchase a car and glorify God and say, you know what, this is God's gift to me. And, they'll be driving the car and they will acknowledge that I am not the one driving this car. It is God that is controlling everything and the doer of everything. And, safely getting me from point A to point B. Before, you start the car, you say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. When you're looking out the windshield, you glorify God and his creations. Same thing goes with food. There's nothing wrong with eating a burger. As long as you're eating in moderation and you're mindful and you're appreciative to God, and you make sure that you don't waste. So there's all of these things. And, we're in this illusion, and we can essentially grow our souls, or we can, boost our ego, which leads me to my next point. I specifically wanted to talk about a few different things. I know ego is pretty complex, and there's a lot of things that we can essentially talk about when it comes to ego. But I specifically wanted to focus on how argumentative the human being is. And we see this all the time. Maybe in relationships, you give power to yourself. You think that if I yell, loud enough, or if I drive my point over and over and over again, or if I, whatever it is, we're giving ourselves power, and we think that, somehow we have the power to change the other person's mind. And so we constantly go back and forth. And so, sometimes these peaceful debates will turn into arguments and like a back and forth, because at that point, we are no longer growing our souls. We are boosting our egos. Another thing is to be profoundly unappreciative. This one is particularly funny because we live in such a privileged country. And there's this thing online, it's called First World Problems. And it's basically glorifying, how profoundly unappreciative human beings are. And I think it's interesting. There was actually something that I read online, and it was basically, you have this nice house, and the maid comes to your house to clean, and she's vacuuming your room, and you're objecting because you can't hear your favorite TV show. So it's like you're so blessed that you go out of your way to complain. And I think that's essentially what human beings do, and it's very easy to fall into that. Anxious, you basically don't trust in God. You're uncertain about the future. And you know what? We don't know what the future is. So, it's very essential to trust in God, to be weak. When somebody gives us a reminder, we object, we say no, we make excuses that, no, actually, no, you are wrong, even though you are giving me a reminder. But we have to realize that God is controlling that situation. So if you get a reminder, know that reminders come from God. And so, it's best to reflect as opposed to, get upset. And so, we all have weaknesses. And I specifically wanted to focus on selfishness. So, in retrospect, what does God teach us from Quran? Anyone? Selflessness. Exactly. So I wanted to talk about this image really quick. So this is specifically tailored to our personal life. So there is this the son, and he's kind of like in his own element. He's not very concerned with the reaction of his parents, and his parents are basically upset at him. So I think that this is really interesting because in our society, we tend to give so much importance to our friendships, We would do anything for our best friend. But when it comes to our parents, we're like, oh, yeah, that's my mom and dad. And it's interesting because how many, TV shows are there or how many movies are there where there's children that are like talking bad and like disrespecting their parents. And God specifically tells us to honor our parents. And it's such an important commandment because it is, the second commandment. It's mentioned various times in the Quran and Bible and Scripture. And it's incredibly selfless, to honor your parents because, they raised you from infancy. They provided for you by God's leave. Your mother nurtured you. And so it doesn't make sense to even talk back to your parents, nor shall you shout at them, right? And it took me a while to realize this, but I think the older you get, the more appreciative you become of the blessings, which is your parents. And it makes sense not to shout at them, not to be annoyed at them. If they ask you to do something, you do it. And you don't do it annoyingly or grudgingly. You do it because first of all, it's God's commandment. You want to make sure that you're honoring your parents. And we know that it's incredibly important because it makes you think, what am I doing to please my parents? So you're not necessarily just thinking about yourself, right? How many times do you wake up on a Saturday morning, for example, and you have no plans, and you're like, you know what, I'm just going to clean the whole house, or I'm going to make my parents breakfast, right? And it's not Mother's Day, or it's not Father's Day. Like, how many times do we think to just do something nice for our parents, because our parents have been constantly doing, so many things for us, And now I want to focus on the community aspect, okay? So, so the question that we have to ask ourselves is, how are my actions affecting my community, okay? And I specifically wanted to focus on a few verses. So, you shall force yourself to be with those who worship their Lord day and night. And I specifically wanted to mention the word force. What does it mean to force yourself to do something? You force yourself to get out of bed because you don't want to get out of bed. And the same thing goes, it's when you don't want to go to Quran study because you're either lazy or you you had a bad day or something, you just don't feel like going. But this is when God commands you to force yourself to be with believers, because you might go to Quran study and learn something. You know, maybe one person may say something and you might really, you know, think, wow, that was a profound statement, and you think about it all week long. So, you know, sometimes submitters will text you or whatever it is, and they'll ask you to hang out. And you'll just try to make up excuses, you know. You'll say, well, I can't wake up, you know, early in the morning, or I just don't want to, or I don't have money to spend, or whatever excuse it is. Like, I don't really like hiking, or whatever it is, for example. And you know, that whole time that you're coming up with all of these excuses, you're really just feeding into your own personal desires. But when you force yourself to do something, it's not because you want to do it, you know, it's because of God's commandments. Another verse that I wanted to focus on is, you shall be clean and dress nicely when you go to masjid. And so this is something that we always have to understand. Well, first of all, it's God's commandment, right? So we have to do this. But when you dress nicely for masjid, not only are you respecting God and respecting his place of worship, but you are also giving respect to yourself, and you are respecting others, and you're being considerate of others. Think of, you know, if I had smelly hair and, you know, I just came from the gym and I went to the masjid, and I essentially just victimized people, like people that I was sitting next to. Like, I wouldn't be considerate, right? I wouldn't be considerate of the person sitting, you know, to the left and right of me. And so, you know, this is why I always say, like, God's laws are perfect, because in every light that you think about them, you realize, wow, if I just listen to God, he knows what is best for me. He is most wise. Okay, so my last point is, how do our actions affect society? And I specifically wanted to talk about homosexuality, because, you know, it's kind of like this like new trend to accept everyone. And I was kind of going over the Quran, and I realized a lot of the gross sins are those sins that really victimize people in society. For example, drunk driving. You know, you drink alcohol because of your own personal desires, because you want to have fun, and then you go and kill someone. Because, you know, you drive and you kill someone, essentially. So we always have to think, like, how are our actions affecting society? So with homosexuality, right, there's like two people, because of their own personal desires, they want to, you know, get married, right? And it's interesting because it doesn't work out. Let's say this couple wants to have a family. First of all, they cannot biologically have a family. So they, you know, go out and adopt, and those children are already denied of a father or a mother. And in retrospect, when you think about marriage, the way that it's supposed to be, which is a union between a man and a woman, you just really appreciate, you know, how complementary it is when a male and a female, they come together. And we know that as submitters, the only way to have a successful marriage is when two people, they love God the most and they fear God the most. And they want to, you know, come together as a team to, you know, overcome weaknesses and give each other reminders and stuff like that. And this is why it works. When they have a family, they raise their children to be these righteous people so that they can go out and be, you know, citizens and go into the workforce and set a good example. So we have to really think about the bigger picture and not just focus on ourselves, because it's very easy to get into that. So, you know, I think if there's one thing, one aspect of my speech that I want you guys to take away from all of this is, you know, in every single way, whether it's like, small or big. How are my actions affecting other people? All right? And that is it. Thank you.
Mashallah. So, okay, we're back on schedule. So if we do have any comments or questions for Nahal, we'll take some of those. And then if we finish that up, we can do some comments and questions for the previous speeches too, inshallah. So we'll start off with Elham.
So I noticed in your last picture, you had a picture of Toronto. What's your beef with Toronto? Why didn't you post a picture of San Francisco?
I mean, I just wanted to find a picture that represented society. So I thought, why not, city life.
Apparently I was wrong. That wasn't Toronto, sorry. I should have verified.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so then I'll do also questions for the previous two speeches. So for Natasha and for Mary's speeches. So I know that Sarah has a question for Natasha. Not that question.
As far as standing up for God, I just had a general question because there's some Facebook forums where there's some seriously distorted arguments. Okay, so I just wanted to find out if I could get some feedback or in relation to your talk about Facebook forums where it's like an extremely distorted type of talk about when you cannot really handle how distorted it is because you're trying to stick to the message. Is it okay to stand up for God and disregard those forums, some of them? I mean, there's some that I completely connect with by God's grace. There's a lot of reminders and great things, but we were talking about standing up for God, and that was one of the things that I have been sort of trying to fine-tune within my behavior. Okay, so if anyone has an answer, or Natasha has an answer for that, there was some, there's divisions, there's disintegration of some things that are happening, but is it being neutral, or is it, what is the stance that people would take in God's light with regard to disregarding some of those like obscenely just distorted argumentations on Facebook? Yeah.
That's a really good question, mashallah. I think that the verse that comes to mind, it says, the end of it says, whenever possible, you shall strive. And I think that realistically, we can't be on every forum, because, we have lives, right? But I think it's important that for my group of Facebook friends, I want to make it known that they know what my stance is, right? And that the people who I'm associated with on Facebook know this is what Natasha believes, and that there's no question about that. Because maybe people are like, oh, like I don't know, like what does Natasha believe, right? So I think as long as I make my stance known that I'm only for God, nobody else, like that's my job. Or if someone comes on my page and says something crazy, then I feel like that's my responsibility to respond to that. And then I don't know, because some people have so much time, like I just see them like just going on there. I'm like, dude, what are you guys doing? Like, how do you have all this free time to just be responding? So that's why I'll just like, okay, I can't read it all, but this one sounds like something I would say, like it and keep it moving. But you can't be on all the forums, But I think that as long as God knows and you know that you've made your stance, then that's where I would start, and maybe more people can input on that.
So I had a question for Natasha. Could you tell us, you briefly mentioned something with you and Aaron, something happened, and then it was fixed, but then it was not really clear, like the specifics of like what kind of what it was. I mean, we're just curious, I suppose, if you don't mind.
He gave a sermon on it. Solomon? He gave a sermon on it.
I can tell what the comment was if you want.
Yeah, I don't remember what the comment was.
So Natasha and I had this thing going on, so every time I see people like make these comments about how the police beat them up, I watch the video and I feel like a lot of the times those people actually, they created the problem themselves. So I try to be fair about it. So her and I got into a lot of debates about this. And then one day I saw a video where a guy kind of got beat up by the police, and I felt like he kind of, it was provoked, he had his part in provoking it, right? So I made a statement that was definitely racist. I said later on this guy's going to be like, or it was some to the extent that later on this guy, oh no, it was the video when the guy, they were punking the teacher in the school. Right, and I said later on this guy's going to be out on the street getting beat up by the police, and he's going to be saying, I ain't did nothing. So this is what I said. Like, it was not a cool response. Like,
it wasn't funny in the moment.
Yeah. And
We're good now, though.
And Natasha had to be the one to see it, and it took me a long time to realize that I was wrong, and God literally had to make us meet each other at an airport in front of a gate with the number 19 on it for me to realize that I had to talk to her about it. So that's what happened.
So I will take 2 more questions, and then we're going to go to the next speaker, God willing. So next is Ali.
Nahal, I just wanted to ask you, you and I have talked about this before, I think, but what was your conclusion on this? God says, worry about your own neck, and then God says, in 2 places in the Quran, that selfishness is condemned. How do you reconcile those 2 things?
I think there's a difference between worrying about your own neck and going about your life just focusing on yourself and kind of not being considerate about other people. I find it very different because essentially we all know that we are responsible for our own neck, so it only makes sense to do what's right. But it's when we victimize others, I think that's where we go wrong.
Sonam? She has a question.
Hello? Oh, okay. This is for Natasha. Mashallah, I completely, I have no dispute about standing up for God, and that should be your first priority always. But in terms of, mashallah, you're able to find the balance between standing up for God and standing up for your rights, which I'm glad you mentioned the importance of, because I feel like as submitters, even if personally I have 0 tolerance for racism, and I think that as submitters we should be setting the best example and realize that that is a form of oppression. And even as a joke, I think obviously you know, you don't have to be offended by everything, and you can tease jokingly if both parties know it's okay. But I don't think you should compromise with your own self-respect at the end of the day. If it's worth a discussion, personally I have 0 tolerance for racism, and I think inshallah as submitters we should set the best example.
Okay, mashallah. So we're going to move to the next speaker. Okay, I'll do one more question since we're still setting up. Carrie.
Maybe I'll start something with Natasha since we don't have something. My only
Hello.
comment is maybe. Oh, Q's ready.
No, go for it.
I'll ask Q's question. There's a difference between Nigga and Nigger. Was that your question, Q? Is there a difference?
Yeah,
Or no?
because we have an N-word in Farsi.
Man, I don't even know the N-word in Farsi. Right.
That's why I asked.
was
I
right. See, you and I, Q, we're on this.
You know, we are being streamed.
No way. Tell me when you're streaming so I edit.
It's always streaming.
Oh, okay. Okay. This one?
You don't need to press it. You just click next. You're ready.
Okay. All right, got it. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. Salam alaikum, everyone. So, here's my topic. What is the most important thing in a life of a believer? SubhanAllah, we know that we are here for one purpose, and we are here to redeem ourselves back to God's kingdom. This is the most important thing in the life of a believer. Over and over, we read in the Quran that only those who are absolutely devoted to God alone will be saved. 37:40. Only God's servants who are absolutely devoted to Him alone will be saved. Again in 37:74. Only God's servants who are absolutely devoted to Him alone are saved. 37:128. Only God's servants who are absolutely devoted to Him alone are saved. And 37:160. Only God's servants who are absolutely devoted to Him alone are saved. So we should ask ourselves, how can I devote myself absolutely to God alone? In the introduction, under proclaiming one religion for all the people, in the middle it says, anyone who submits to God and devotes the worship to God alone is a submitter. And then again, in the introduction, it says submission is the religion whereby we recognize God's absolute authority and reach an unshakable conviction that God alone possesses all power. And it goes on, and no other entity possesses any power that is independent of Him. The natural result of such a realization is to devote our lives and our worship absolutely to God alone. So the reason is obvious. God is the only entity that possesses all power. An intelligent person will say, what am I doing going to other entities for help? And then again, we read in the same introduction that all submitters are devoted to God alone and do not set up any idols beside God, are redeemed into God's eternal kingdom. And then it ends like this. It says, a criteria of a true submitter is that they will find nothing objectionable in the Quran. SubhanAllah, we can go back. With the history. Satan acknowledged this. Satan acknowledged the fact that when he was coming up with this idea that I could be a god beside God, he acknowledged this. He said, my Lord, since you have willed that I go astray, I will surely entice them on earth. I will send them all astray, except those among your worshippers who are absolutely devoted to God alone. He said, I swear by your majesty that I will send them all astray, except your worshippers who are absolutely devoted to you alone. So let's examine the depth of this statement. How do you devote yourself absolutely to God alone? We go with the example of Abraham. Abraham was never an idol worshiper. The debate, I want to read this. Abraham's debate with the idol worshippers. It says, recall that Abraham said to his father Azar, how could you worship statues as gods? I see that you and your people have gone far astray. We showed Abraham the marvels of the heavens and the earth and blessed him with certainty. When the night fell, he saw a shining planet. Maybe this is my Lord, he said. When it disappeared, he said, I do not like gods that disappear. When he saw a moon rising, he said, maybe this is my Lord. When it disappeared, he said, unless my Lord guides me, I will be with the strayers. When he saw the sun rising, he said, this must be my Lord, this is the biggest. But when he said, O my people, I denounce your idolatry. I have devoted myself absolutely to God alone, to the one who initiated the heavens and the earth. I will never be an idol worshiper. His people argued with him. He said, do you argue with me about God after he has guided me? I have no fear of the idols you set up. Nothing can happen to me unless my Lord wills it. My Lord's knowledge encompasses all things. Would you not take heed? Why should I fear your idols? It is you who should be afraid, since you worship instead of God idols that are absolutely powerless to help you, that are utterly powerless to help you. Which side is more deserving of security, if you know? Perfect security for the believers. And then it goes on to say, those who believe and do not pollute with their worship with idol worship, their belief with idol worship, have deserved the perfect security and are truly guided. So we learn from this example. Of course, we know that Abraham was mocking the idol worshippers, telling them how stupid you are by going to these powerless creatures for help and protection. This is an everlasting example that we know. The smart thing is to turn to God and be devoted to God alone. And this is why devotion to God alone has to do with La ilaha illallah, which means no God but God. And that's in other examples that we see in the Quran. For example, the examples of, inshallah, I'll go into it more, of other prophets. We know that devotion equals no idol. Devotion means no idols in your life. In fact, we see that this is mentioned in the same surah, Surah 37, verse 35. It says, the first commandment, when they are told, La ilaha illallah, there is no God but beside God, they turn arrogant. Absolute devotion to God alone is mentioned in this same surah 4 times. And if you add the Surah 35, verse 35, plus the 4 other times that says only those who are absolutely devoted to God alone saved, it adds up to 437, which is a multiple. SubhanAllah. This is a confirmation that devotion has to do with no idols. Again, no idols in our lives. Most believers in God who worship Him regularly end up messing up their devotion and won't be saved simply by dividing their devotion. We see that in 33:4. devotion to God is indivisible. God did not give man God did not give any man two hearts in his chest, nor did he give your wives whom you strange according to your custom into mothers. So we can see in these verse that God wants us to devote ourselves with all our heart, all our soul to God alone. Example of Solomon. By loving the material things and our possessions, worldly things, we can mess up our devotion. Example of Solomon, I'm not going to read all the verses, but you can see that as soon as he realized that his material possessions caused him to forget God or his worship, he got rid of them. And the footnote says, Solomon missed his afternoon prayer because of his horses. To nullify Satan's possible claim that Solomon loved his horses more than loving God, he got rid of his horses. Again, in Matthew, we see the example of Jesus. It says, no one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? So I want to get into how, as submitters, we can mess up our devotion. One of the things that it's one of the hardest things that we run into is choosing between God and others. Or this particular one is acquiescing to people's wishes, like the examples that are given in 141 through 145. And you can see, I'm not going to read the whole verses, but because of time, but you can see that those who go between the two groups, neither belonging with the believers or the disbelievers, they waver in between. They cannot stay devoted. They cannot stay devoted and devote their worship to God alone and their religion to God alone because of this issue, because of their devotion is to their friends or loyalties to their peers. In last verse, I'm going to read that. It says, only those who repent, reform, and hold fast to God and devote their religion absolutely to God alone will be counted with the believers. God will bless the believers with a great recompense. By allying ourselves with those who oppose the truth, this messes up our devotion. We have the important criteria. It says, proclaim if your parents, your children, your siblings, your spouses, your family, the money you have earned, a business you worry about, and the home you cherish are more beloved to you than God and His messenger, and striving His cause, then just wait until God brings His judgment. God does not guide the wicked people. So since the odds are overwhelming against any human being to actually believe and devote the worship to God alone, it is virtually impossible to see a whole family believe. Thus, most believers have been faced with the question, either me or God and His messenger. The question is consistently stated by spouses of the believers or their parents, their children, etc. Consistently, the believers made the right choice. This is a mandatory test for all believers. This is another thing that we've been dealing with in our community, and back and forth. Goes with the same criteria that there are those who abuse the masjid by practicing idol worship, dividing the believers, and providing comfort to those who oppose God and His messenger. They solemnly swear our intentions are honorable. God bears witness that they are liars. So any masjid that opposes the truth or doesn't stand with the truth is not devoted absolutely to God. And believers realize that, and they know that they cannot acquiesce to people's wishes or shift their loyalties because of these worldly relationships. God says in the Quran that on the day of resurrection, you will disown one another, you will curse one another. So is it worth risking our salvation, being saved? Because we cannot be looking at this life as this is it. We have to be very, very vigilant on the fact that we have to be on the side of God no matter who doesn't like it, no matter who's on the other side. And all these relationships are a test. Our money is a test. Everything is a test to show if you're absolutely devoted to God alone. If we love God the most, our devotion must be to Him alone. The idols disown their idolizers, 2:165. Yet more people, some people set up idols to rival God and love them as if they are God. Those who believe love God the most. If only the transgressors could see themselves when they see the retribution, they will realize then that all power belongs to God and God's retribution is awesome. Submission, the only religion. Indeed, those who submit themselves absolutely to God alone while leading a righteous life will receive the recompense from their Lord. They have nothing to fear, nor will they grieve. Only those who come to God with their whole heart will be saved. So the devotion has to be under all circumstances. We can see this, in the introduction again. I wanted to refer to under the most gracious, most merciful. It says even our worldly dimensions. Even in our worldly dimension, any enterprise expects the employee to be loyal and devoted to the welfare of the employer on the enterprise of the enterprise. So this tells me that why should God want to keep the people who are not loyal to Him? It doesn't make sense. A guided believer is devoted to God alone and rejoices in seeing any other believer who is devoted to God alone. And this is what unites us, our devotion to God. So I want to end with remembering the example of Abraham. It says, among his followers was Abraham. He came to his Lord wholeheartedly. And talking about other believers, they reverenced the most gracious in their privacy and came wholeheartedly. And obviously, a person who loves God the most realizes that nobody and nothing else in this world can benefit them and help them, and that they should be absolutely devoted to God in order to be saved, and that God is the one who possesses all power. And even Quran in 331 says, proclaim, if you love God, you should love me. Should follow me, meaning the Quran. God will then love you and forgive your sins. God is forgiver, most merciful. MashaAllah, we as a community, this is our only goal, and we strive to devote our lives, all our affairs, everything, to be absolutely to be devoted to God and not to waver, because we're going to be faced with challenges, and we're going to be faced with situations where we have to show where our loyalty lies. We have no other purpose here. There's no other purpose. For a believer, this is the only purpose, and we cannot take this life too lightly and basically go with our desires and our relationships and all of that. And that's it, mashallah.
Okay, so any questions or comments? Okay, so Siraj.
So we all, as a submitters, we have crossed that idol worship thing. We are doing the practices. And what else you see will be how to improvise our devotion to God alone? Because whatever your criteria you set up, like Solomon's criteria, and then being a hypocrite, and then opposing, not siding with the enemies of God, mashallah, as a community, we are doing everything good. What else do you think as a community and as an individual we should do to better our devotion to God alone?
Mashallah. My only response is to follow everything that Quran says, because the criteria of a true submitter is that we should accept everything and try our best to put it in practice. Obviously, the first and foremost important thing in a believer's life is to give up all idols. You know, we come here with having tendency to get dependent on money, on material things, and on relationships. These are the things that we are dependent to begin with. So our job is to start cutting all these dependence and devote ourselves to God by showing our loyalty only to God, and that we can never ever rely on anything or anyone other than God. Once you do that, you become totally dependent on God, and you realize that this life is an illusion, and everything about this life is an illusion, and we are here just to reach this conviction, this solid conviction, unshakable solid conviction, to know only God possesses all power. And this is why Abraham's example was perfect security happens when you do that. When you cut all your ties with the idols that we have in our lives and devote ourselves absolutely to God. And as soon as you do that, you realize that you're a free man. You don't worry. You don't have any fear. You're in perfect security because you have a God who never breaks His word. You have a God who never turns His back on you, and He has all the power to give you all the things you're after in this life. So it makes perfect sense. An intelligent person accepts that.
Okay, so we got a list. So let's keep the comments and questions short, inshallah, because I only have 4 minutes. I want to get through everybody, and then we can go to Ziba's speech, inshallah. No problem. So next is Fangis Jun, then Aaron, then Agha Ghaffari, then Karen.
I'll go short, inshallah.
In Surah 6, Ayah 76, you are talking about the shining planet. Do you know which planet is that?
No, it doesn't matter which planet, as long as the idea was introduced that none of these things that you look at to seek power has no power. It was just symbolic to say that even the biggest star, which was sun out there, this is the biggest. This can help me. He proved his point. He said, wait a minute, you're relying on these things that are all creations. Go to the Creator.
Thank you for your speech. So Q, I see you as a, mashallah, devoted submitters, but as long as you've been in the path, what are some of the things that, maybe a couple examples in your life that you're working on to further devote yourself to God?
I'm no different than any other human being. I have been struggling with material things in my life, provision, all these things that we come across, every one of us are after these things, okay? And obviously, provision is one of the things that as a bread earner, you think about, and you think that, you know, now I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to, you know, make this much money, then I'm safe now. You know, this is something that we all think that our savings, our money, our wealth, or all these, the backup to take care of us. But little do we know that all of these things are all controlled by God. And once we realize God's power, once we realize who He is, and He never breaks His promise, and we do not doubt Him, then all of these things will just take. God says, "I'll take care of you." He'll do it, and that's what I struggled with, you know, some time ago, and I still have doubts, but I'm going to, mashallah, get over them. Yeah.
Okay, so actually we're almost out of time, so I'll just do Agha Ghaffari, then if we still have time for other Q&A speeches, I'll come back to everybody else. So Agha Ghaffari.
First of all, thank you again for the speech and the whole thing. Prior to this, this organization, alhamdulillah, it's a congregation. And by God's grace, it is showing after a couple of days, this is one of the greatest congregations ever from the time I started to become a submitter, alhamdulillah. And it was so peaceful and it was so beautiful that it shows, am I right? Yeah. That it shows the purity that God promised to us, that we are the true believers. Inshallah, it's going to continue by God's grace, and we are going to be the Ummah of Ibrahim by the God's grace. Rashad taught us what to do in order to be a true submitters according to Quran, and we learned and we continued, and we know we are the ones that God wants to guide us. And this is the greatest thing. Devotion that you were talking about and you were emphasizing here should be divided to ourselves too. And I would really appreciate if you guys introduce to us who were involved in this gathering to make it so beautiful. And thank to God, of course, He guided everybody. But there were individuals that they put this gathering together, and I would like, in behalf of everybody, to thank them all before we end this session, actually, and say that, hey,
Allahu Akbar.
Go for it, please, and let us have more and more, and let the whole world knows that when God wants to give victory to a group, He will give it.
MashaAllah.
That's right.
Thank you.
Hi everybody. You know, as you guys know, inshallah we will have party, continuing our party in the park after conference, inshallah. And me and Lisa organized some, you know, pizza for everybody's. And inshallah, after here, I think after 1:30, after namaz, inshallah, we are going to the next door park. And we will have, inshallah, pizza. But just to let you guys know, Lisa paid everything in advance with her credit card. And they charged her, you know, around, you know, some, you know, amount of money. And if you guys are willing to come, please give Lisa $5 in cash or PayPal, doesn't matter, any, you know, type of money that you want to pay. And per person, yeah, per person $5. And, you know, sorry? I have her credit card number now, and I'm going for shopping after that. Okay, thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. So our next speaker is Ziba and Arman.
Oh, I can.
This is the, you know, like back and forth.
Oh, perfect.
MashaAllah.
Okay.
Assalamualaikum, everybody. Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum.
Oh, you have yours. Okay. My name is Ziba, and I am from the San Jose community. My name is Ziba, and I'm from the San Jose community, and this is my first speech. I have never given a speech. I think one time, like in the beginning of submission, I was standing next to Ali reading verses, but that was pretty much it.
Also me.
Yes.
Right, no. I think on the last one, I think on the last conference, I was reading verses with my dad.
Yes. Okay. So, mashallah. Arman, how old are you?
8.
8. And how long have you been practicing submission?
All my life.
Oh, mashallah. So the topic is parents' responsibility. Sorry, my voice is a little raspy this morning. As stated in the Quran. So first, can we just start with an al-Fatih? Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-sirata mustaqim. Sirata alladhina an'amta alayhim. غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Okay, so God willing, I'd like to discuss what our role is as parents and what God says we should be doing to enjoin our kids in submission and also share the things we do as a community with our children. At this point, I'd like to have Arman read this verse. And what do you do before you read a verse in the Quran?
Don't forget to seek refuge in God before you read the verse.
Okay, you can read from here, whatever you like.
You shall enjoin your family to observe the contact prayer salat and steadfastly preserve in doing so. We do not ask you for any provisions. We are the ones who provide for you. The ultimate triumph belongs to the righteous.
Mashallah, thank you. Okay, so how do we build a foundation in submission? So as parents, our job is to lay a solid foundation in submission. We teach them the religion, and while the mother is primarily responsible for teaching the religion to her children, because we're with the kids most of the time, a father also plays an important role. So both parents need to work as a team to teach them all the rights of the religion. So can you tell me what Daddy does every morning with you and Chloe?
We wake up at we wake up at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, and then we do fudge or dawn prayer in the morning, and we read some Quran.
Mashallah. So, I don't know, I'm not done yet. Okay, so now that Chloe and Arman, they're old enough to properly observe the contact prayers, Ali has taken the responsibility of waking them up at dawn, helping them with ablution and reciting Quran. So this is a nice practice we have in our family because not only are the kids learning from their father, but it's also a bonding time for them that they stay with them because it's such a short period of time that they're this little, and eventually they do it on their own and they wake up. So that's just something they can look back and say, remember when Dad would wake us up for prayer and read Quran to us? It's like a lasting memory. Okay. Sorry. Thank you. Next. Okay, thank you. Okay, so set the best example for your children. So we have to make sure we set the best example for our kids. Arman, can you please read this verse?
Sure. O you who believe, no people shall ridicule other people, for they may be better than they, nor shall any woman ridicule other women, for they may be better than they. Nor shall you mock one another or make fun of your names. Evil indeed is the reversion to wickedness after attaining faith. Anyone who does not repent after this, these are the transgressors.
MashaAllah. So as I said, we lead by example, and we have, our kids, they see everything that we do, and every move we make, and they watch our interactions, whether it's positive or negative. It can imprint on our kids consciously and subconsciously. This confirms the level of responsibility we bear as parents, because not only do you have to make sure you are observing God's commandments as individuals, but you also have to make sure you are following God's laws in front of your children. So this means no fighting, no bickering, no nagging, no road rage, no lying, because if you do, you will start to see your children mimicking that behavior. And once they start to learn the religion, you begin to notice your own children giving you reminders, mashallah. And we see it in our community all the time, especially with like the teenagers now. They give their parents reminders, mashallah. So again, teach your children the religion. Submitting families are blessed because the children get a head start on life. They get exposed to the religion from birth, making it much easier on them as they grow older. So just from a few months, babies observe us doing our contact prayers, doing commemoration, going to Quran studies, Friday prayer. We see it in our community all the time, mashallah. We see our kids beginning by mimicking our prayers and trying to get their ablution. So this goes back to lead by example. They just want to be like mommy and daddy. Sometimes it may be difficult to do this, but trust me, they benefit. Even when they are sitting in Quran study and you're thinking they have absolutely no idea what's going on. But we know that it benefits them because they get acclimated to the environment, and it'll become something normal, like an everyday thing. But we just have to make sure we're consistent and frequent. It says, and I like to always tell my kids that they're doing these righteous works to grow their souls and please God. I don't want them to think that it's for mommy or daddy and that they are only accountable to God. And so that goes with my slogan. It says, do it for your soul and please God, not me. And then I learned this phrase, well, I don't know if it's word for word from Shazia, and I started using it with my kids, and I thought it was interesting. So I may not see everything you do, but remember that God watches over us and knows everything we do. So we should always do our best to observe God's commandments, because the kids are not always with us. They're not always in our presence. And so we teach them the religion and then pray that they continue on in their daily lives practicing. So, and then this past year, mashallah, Arman started doing his contact prayer with Chloe at school. And it's been such a blessing that they go to the same school, so they're close in age. And we tell him how special he is and that he has this precious gift of submission, and how the contact prayers are a requirement in order to make it back to heaven. So he takes it seriously, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so was it hard for you to do your prayers at school?
No, not really.
Why?
Because God gave me a private room and a bathroom.
Mashallah. Mashallah. Yeah, so we told the school, and by God's leave, he had his own private space with a prayer rug and his own bathroom that they could break away and do their prayers. So it was really nice, mashallah. The next one is positive peer pressure. Okay, the bottom picture, I just added that because we went to Japan last spring, and I was looking out a window, and I saw this cart with a bunch of kids, and it just reminded me of just our community, mashallah. We have so many kids and more on the way that eventually, if we're trying to go places, we'll probably need one of those to take the kids around. We need to spend time with the believers and their kids. And the kids in our masjid, they have a special bond and understanding. Mashallah, they really enjoy spending time with one another, and they see within their own group, hey, there's someone like me, and I'm not the only one who prays to God. And I love when my kids go to submitters' homes, because I know that their prayers will be taken care of and they'll be enjoined in the religion. For example, my kids, they receive math tutoring from Mena once a week and music lessons from Mary. And when what they don't know is that in addition to these worldly lessons, they get the added benefit of being with the believers, because by default, God comes up, they'll do their prayer with them. And last week, they went for a music lesson with Mary, and they got to do a little Quran study with her kids. So it's just really nice to have that community involvement. And also, we have kids' night once a month, and the kids get together. Natasha hosts this by God's leave, and she pretty much takes all responsibility and gets the activities together, prizes, and all the kids get together. They do some God-related activity, and they're just with themselves, so they're learning from each other. And the lessons that they learn in these group settings are just invaluable. So again, don't be intimidated. Bring your children to Quran studies. If you seek to please God, God will make sure your kids are well behaved, and eventually they will learn that Friday prayers and Quran study are a time that we learn about God. These are some more photos. This is not all the kids that are masjid. I didn't have all the photos on hand, but this is just a snapshot of the relationships that have formed over the years with the kids, mashallah, and just the beautiful souls that we have in our masjid. So expose them to the religion any chance you get. So take each moment as a learning opportunity and incorporate God. For example, babies and toddlers are always eating and snacking, and what you can do is constantly repeat Bismillah before they eat, and eventually they'll learn to say it on their own. Like we have Juliet, and she says Bismillah and Inshallah, Mashallah, and because she hears it so often. And as they grow older, remind them to say Inshallah, Mashallah, and explain when it's appropriate to say these words so it's used in context. Because first they just learn the words and they mimic, but then eventually they can know how to use it in context. So this is how you gradually teach them the religion. I wanted to show you an example of how simple it is to incorporate God at a young age. And I have a little video of Armand. I think he's about 4, and it's really cute, and just thought I'd share. I don't know if Malcolm can get that up for me. It's okay. Some of you probably already seen this.
It's on Facebook.
Everything's on Facebook.
You don't know? Is it so we can go get pumpkins?
That's Chloe in the background.
Our soul? And what is that for? What happens every time you do namaz? It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. If you don't do your namaz? It gets smaller and smaller. Ooh, and then what does that mean? It means bigger than an ant. The size of an ant? Every time we do namaz, we want our souls to get bigger and bigger. Yes.
Mashallah.
Okay, what time is it? It looks like we have to do our before it gets too late. We want to grow our souls. Where's your soul? Where?
Thank you. Mashallah. Just a few more and then we're done, inshallah. Okay, so, all right. Some more submitters. Inshallah, that's Darian. Asana's his little one. And that's Savannah and Juliet. So just remember, kids will be kids and they will do silly things. So I want to say a big thank you to our community for being patient with our children as they figure out submission.
So not too long ago, we started up a Wednesday morning Quran study. That's open to everyone, by the way. And the setting is a little more relaxed. We usually have our toddlers there playing while we have our study. MashaAllah, it has been working really well for us, and it's a nice change to our normal evening studies because we get a nice midweek morning boost when we spend 2 hours talking about God. And so this is our studies. It's the people who Skype in. This is what it looks like behind the scenes. Usually we have more people on Skype than actually in the study. MashaAllah. Okay, and so don't forget, your kids are not robots, nor are they baby Jesus. They don't come talking out of the crib. So use your resources, okay? MashaAllah, we have a community full of parents. We can always consult with other parents to get tips on how to incorporate God in our daily lives because the mission is so much more than just making it to Quran studies and Friday prayer. For example, the moms, we have a group on Facebook where we can post questions. A lot of them are about just, how to join our kids in the religion, Friday prayers, contact prayers in schools, like sharing stories, and we just bounce off of each other, and I'm really thankful for that support system. And, mistakes happen, and God knows. He is the most gracious, most merciful. We can repent and reform, and God turns our sins into credits. But the catch is that we really have to change, and this is an area I'm working hard on. I'm working on my patience, my temper, not being as frustrated. And as Rima said in her speech, that we can't say we're trying, we have to actually do it. All right, what's your parenting style? That's like a famous line in this day and age with new parents. So we have the Quran, and there's also a parallel here to Rima's speech because in addition to the Quran being the best self-help book, it's also the best parenting book. God's message is fully detailed. The parents these days, they've turned parenting style like pretty much into a religion, and there's so many different views on how to raise your child, and we're blessed because stand right here, baby. We're blessed because we have the ultimate book, and that tells us how to raise our children. And let me just give a little disclaimer. I'm not saying not to read these parenting books and they're not prohibited, but just make sure you're using them in light of the Quran because there's just so much out there. And some helpful tips. Remember that God is doing everything on repeat, especially when you have kids. This is something you need to be saying all the time to yourself. And so we hear it all the time, so we just need to put it into practice, that God is doing everything. And I like to play the sermon by the Messenger of Covenant on YouTube. I just stream it on my TV in the mornings or in the evenings. I'll watch it with Ali, the God is doing everything one. It has so much wisdom in it, and especially when I'm starting my day or ending, it's just great. So, and then when you're in a sticky situation, I always try to seek refuge in God from Satan the rejected. And I notice when I get carried away with the worldly life that my day starts to change for the worse. So snap out of it by remembering that God is doing everything and seek refuge. And children are the joys of this world. And if we do our part, then we can really look at them and appreciate what a blessing they are for us. Arma, can you read this first?
Sure. And they say, Our Lord, let our spouses and children be a source of joy for us and keep us in the forefront of the righteous.
MashaAllah. So this is such a beautiful prayer and verse to read. We know that only God can provide us with a source of joy and happiness. So follow what is commanded of us in the Quran to attain these wonderful provisions. Praise be to God. And so even in our absence, God takes care of our children. Just do your part and follow the commandments. Can you read that verse, baby?
Sure. To God belongs everything in the heavens and the earth, and God is the only protector.
And so we have an audio from the Messenger of Covenant, and I'm just paraphrasing this, that he explains to us that even when our kids are not in our care, we know that God is with them. We just need to make sure we are doing our part. This gives me peace and comfort, knowing that God controls all matters, which the disbelievers do not have, and they constantly live in fear, especially with their children. So thank you for listening. And may God count us among the righteous and accept our works.
Did you say hi? Hi. Say hi.
Okay, so sorry. Hello. Really quick before we do Q&A, I just want to make a quick announcement. Checkout is at noon at 12 o'clock. So if you guys have not checked out, oh, okay. If you guys have not checked out, please go ahead and do so. Otherwise, you get charged for the next day. Keep in mind, please come back here because we have a speech at 12 sharp, so come back. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, and also Shabnam just told me that if you want to, you can request for a late checkout and they won't charge you, but you have to request it.
But it's only 1 hour.
1 hour though.
Yeah, people, they should just check out and come back. Be the easiest, right? Anybody online? We will be back, God willing, at 12. at 12 p.m. noon.
Hello? Okay. Guys, we're going to get back to doing everything. I just want to make some quick announcements. So I want to have everyone be aware. I mean, Elena's probably going to say it again in her closing remarks so more people hear it, but you guys can hear it now. We would really appreciate feedback and suggestions, what you guys liked, didn't like. All right, guys. Okay, so I'll repeat it, inshallah. And also, Elena will repeat it, God willing, on her closing remarks at 12. But we want to really hear feedback on what you guys liked, didn't like, suggestions that you guys have. I have a little bowl, I guess, right there at the end of the table. There's a notepad. So if you guys would like to write suggestions that you guys want and put your names and put it in there, that would be great. So we're doing it that way. And then also we have a Google form. And I will see if I'll post it on Slack so you guys can be able to click on it there. But maybe we can also put the link on maybe not, because I will stream it. Yeah, okay. So we'll just do it by Slack or
We should also send an email. Slack,
yeah.
but also send an email.
Okay, we'll send an email too. So email, Slack, and then we'll also have a actual physical way of doing it. So that way we can hear from everyone, God willing. So everyone, please, we're going to have our next speaker is going to be actually Eunice. And he...
12, so 10 minutes left.
Yeah, so we... All right. All right, guys, we got a big slam-packed ending. All right, so, okay, we're going to start right now, guys, because we're going to do a lightning round of everything. Okay, so we're going to start off with Eunice's speech, inshallah. Then afterwards, we're going to do closing remarks with Elena. We have two mini speeches from Nujrat would like to say something, and then Shabnam June wants to give a little update. And then we're going to go through the waitlisted speakers, and those are going to be the lightning round. And then, God willing, we're going to finish. We want to do pictures with everyone, so some we could do here, but I got a heads up that the lobby and the outside looks phenomenal, so we should definitely do some pictures out there as well, God willing. Okay, so we're going to start off with Eunice, who changed his topic. His topic is freedom of speech. MashaAllah.
Mocking and ridiculing Makan? Wait, what?
We have 2 minutes left.
How's my, Great. All right, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Today I wanted to change my topic. Your schedule lied to you because it just wasn't meant to be, you know. Passing the message next time, inshallah. This time it's freedom of speech, and I'm picking this topic. It's something I've known in research for a while, and I wanted to just, I put this together to share what is, in my opinion, a very, very critical thing to talk about. And it's because, like, why am I talking about freedom of speech? It's because I personally have heard, and others, I assure you, you've heard people invoke this grandiose ideal of freedom of speech to justify certain actions that go against the Quran, like very clearly go against the Quran. Namely, talking about tolerance, or levels of tolerance, like near unconditional tolerance. And I have a quote here, it says, "Evil preaches tolerance until it is dominant. Then it tries to silence the good." Okay? So we have multiple things in the Quran that talks about tolerance as well, okay? In multiple contexts. Namely, 8:25 says, "Beware the retribution. They may not be limited to the evildoers among you. You should know that God's retribution is severe." And we know that, as an example, the footnote says, a community that tolerates homosexuality, for example, may be hit by an earthquake, okay? So we're talking here about tolerance and what tolerance means. There are other types of tolerance in the Quran. I don't want to look like I'm cherry picking. I know we have to tolerate certain things, certain people's maybe behaviors. Maybe somebody has a temper problem, but they're trying. They're doing certain things. However, we don't tolerate disbelief, especially outright proclaimed or some kind of disbelief that a person's defending, regardless of how many reminders you give them, regardless of how many debates you've had with them, if they're stuck in their disbelief, okay? So I have a quick audio. Give me the mic. No, is it on? I'll take the mouse, Makan. No. Wah. It didn't embed properly. Oh well. That's okay. What it was about to play for you is an audio. It was a quick part of an audio. It's audio number 49 on the Solomon's thing. It's Surah 60 to 61, and right in the it's like something about certainty and something like that. If you look it up, that's usually how it's titled. And right at 5 minutes and 45 seconds exactly, the The messenger of the covenant is going back and forth with somebody, and he said, no, like, no, you don't, gosh, I was just listening to it. But the other person is asking him, like, what if they need help? Should I help them? He says, no. Like, if the person says that they're a disbeliever, if they declare themselves a disbeliever, an unbeliever, right? He says, you don't help them. He's asking, like, it's a simple question, like, I have a flat tire on the side of the road, you pull over, and you're like, oh, right, I know this is an enemy of God, I'm pulling out of here. Like, I'm not going to help this guy change his tires. Yeah, maybe you can pull it up. I'll continue, God willing, in the meantime. For the sake of time. Yeah, because if you pull it up on the phone, yeah, inshallah. Oh, Q has it. Bring it on home.
No, you must have run away from them.
No, this is exactly it.
Themselves as unbelievers.
Okay, he says, if they declare themselves as unbelievers, messenger said, you run away from them. And the guy's like, can we help them? Can we help them in any way?
So they declare themselves as unbelievers. They're enemies of God.
If they declare themselves as unbelievers, they're enemies of God.
Yes, you have to run away from them.
You have to run away from them. You don't help them. Okay, that's really the part I wanted to play. It's very clear. You just listen to the whole thing in context. I promise you, I'm not taking this out of context. It is well within context that you do not help people who are enemies of God. People, especially in this scenario, he says declare themselves unbelievers. But there's other people who are enemies of God that don't ought to come out and declare themselves as unbelievers, right? So then inevitably, when you talk about this topic of freedom of speech, and you say, and we're here, the next part I'm going to be talking about people who may or may not be allowed to come to a conference, or may and may not be allowed to speak. And that's what I really want to address here, is that okay, I won't name names. I'll just go with, if an enemy, like a very well-known enemy, comes to a conference that says, I want to speak, and you know what I'm going to tell them? No. And you know what everybody else that I know that believes with me is going to tell them? No. They're going to say, no, like, we don't want you to speak. I'm not going to give you a platform. Then these people inevitably say, but my freedom of speech, I have my freedom of speech. How dare you deny me my humanity? Or some ridiculous such nonsense, okay? I'll give you a scenario. This scenario I've heard almost verbatim. The person says, you're telling me your belief forcefully, okay, is oppression. You're taking my freedom of speech away. You're victimizing me. I am a victim, okay? I'm a victim. There are victims afoot, okay? And then the next part, which is my favorite, can be best described as wah, wah, wah. That's what I hear. Crybaby, right? So that's what this is. That's what I hear. So now I'm going to, God willing, put this freedom of speech in context. Freedom of speech is a function at the level of government, okay? It's a government level function as a basic human right. But, and this is a slight side note, but it is not something the US government gives you or any other government gives you. It is God that gives you your freedom of speech. Okay, let's be extremely clear about this. God dictates that you must have freedom of speech at a level where you cannot be oppressed, which is the government level. Okay, so in these United States, the people via the Constitution actually prevent the government from limiting your free speech. Okay, so the government can't tell you, you can't organize, you can't have a conference about submission. Right? This is unlike other countries, many of us are here from Iran, where the government does tell you you can't have certain things. You cannot have certain beliefs or we will jail you, we'll oppress you, whatever we can, we'll stop you, okay? So these are the reasons for freedom of speech there. Yeah, okay, I shortened it. At the government level, okay? You can't have a free society. You can't have a free society without freedom of speech. It's impossible. You must have freedom of speech. People who are squelched, meaning silenced, right? Or eventually rebel. People have to be able to express what they have without fear of oppression. We're not talking about, again, oh, like you're right, I'm right, you're wrong, and then help, I'm being repressed. You know, that's not the thing here. So speech is just speech. At the end of the day, no matter what you say, So if you suppress speech, people eventually generally become violent. There's some kind of revolution. Something happens, okay? And this next part, don't crucify me just yet. But it says, even distasteful, nasty, and even blasphemous speech, the government, specifically the government, should not punish you, okay? And this is, and I'll explain why. Some people may have a problem with this, but this is absolutely true. Because any of this leads to oppression, okay? Because there may come a point, let's say submission prevails, submission's dominant, but there may come a point and the government gets corrupt. Then what if they say, we're gonna impose our beliefs? Then the believers who are in the minority are wrong, okay? And I'll explain why this is true. And my beautiful, beautiful Monty Python skit won't play, but you know, that's okay. It's only 17 seconds. So the system, instead, who should tell you, right? God's system is that the people, the communities should tell you what you should or should not say. The community should, in a way, I'll use this word lightly, police each other. In a way, you should say, communities, people are not bound by the limitations of the government, meaning freedom of speech, and we are responsible for upholding the standards of morality, guys. I'll repeat this multiple times, God willing. You, me, the bumblebee, you know, we're responsible. We have to say, you know what? That is a blasphemy. You are speaking against God. You are an enemy if you uphold this belief and you preach it, okay? We uphold the standards. Even in a submitter society, in a submitter government, okay? It is the government that allows you to have your absolute freedom of speech, and it is the people who say, you are full of nonsense. I will not let you open a liquor store on my property. I will not let you, I will not give you a platform to spread your silly, blasphemous, nasty beliefs, okay? It is our duty. And the government can't stop us from stopping them from speaking, and the government can't stop them from speaking out about their stupid beliefs either, okay? Let's get this. This needs to be abundantly clear to anybody. So what does this mean? First of all, yeah, so therefore it has nothing to do with private entities. I was nailing this home. As private entities, that's us as an organization, from stopping each other from speaking, for instance, at a conference. That's right. Yes. That's right. This organization can stop me from speaking. If everybody stood up and said, get off, right? Like I don't have a choice. This isn't a right, right? People treat this as an inalienable right, right? People hear this freedom of speech as an inalienable right. Like, I have a right to speak. No, you have the government won't stop you, but here it is your privilege to speak, right? It is not your right to speak. Nobody here has to bow down to your beliefs and say, yeah, just take the podium. Sorry, like, oh, I'm powerless. That's not the case, okay? But there are, and then I'm going to go over potential reasons you could stop somebody, hypothetically, or there are potential reasons you may not stop somebody from speaking. This is left up to us. It's left up to our discretion, okay? Maybe the person's an enemy of God. Why provide them with a platform? Stop them from speaking. They're promoting falsehood. They're fighting the believers. They're siding with disbelievers instead of believers. Maybe, like, this is left up to us. This is all a judgment call, okay? Right? Maybe they do this once and you're like, you know, maybe the person's confused. Let's enlighten them. A few years pass, they keep doing it. Maybe you say, that's it, right? You're not welcome to speak. Maybe you're not even welcome to come, okay? Any and all Quranic reasons apply here, okay? Reasons, maybe you don't want to stop people from speaking. Maybe you want to have an open debate. The person is promoting this, and they've been promoting this for, like, let's say 5 years, but then they say, you know what, okay, I sort of had a change of heart. I want to come talk. I want to come talk. I want to understand what's going on, okay? Maybe you say, all right, sit down. We'll have a Quran study. I'm still not going to give you a platform to speak, but you know what? Let's sit down and talk. Let's all 100, well, however many of us talk. You know, you give people who haven't made up their minds, you give them the benefit of the doubt, you let them speak. You know, generally giving the people the benefit of the doubt, I'll just put that there. Now, you're not required, again, to provide a platform for anyone at any times without oversight and supervision. This is our charge, in a way. We have to uphold the standards of morality, remember. You should never sit there and think, oh, somebody else has to. No, it's you. The Quran says it's your duty. Malkan, you clicked away. Oh, okay, fine. Everything is a time and place, and it's left up to us. I went over this. Why is it? Maybe it died, finally, after being on all day. Private entities, businesses, nonprofits can all practice as they choose. Can platform you or no platform you, okay? Again, very, very clearly, you can no platform anybody you choose to, for whatever reason. This is within your rights. You may be wrong for doing it. Maybe you did it for the wrong reason. That's possible. Then we have a discussion. You did it for the right reason. That's also fine. Nobody is entitled, guys. Nobody's entitled. This conference, any other conference. Nobody's entitled to a platform, okay? But now there's some other important issues to address here. What not to do. This is an important part so we can nail this home. What not to do when you're organizing a conference and choosing who should or should not speak or attend. Shadow banning. But what is shadow banning? Stealth banning, also known as shadow banning, ghost banning, comment ghosting, is the act of blocking a user, usually in an online community, such that the user does not realize that they have been banned, okay? And this can happen, thank you, Maka. This can happen whether, it can apply to real life. If like you submit and then we come back to you and say, no, you don't have a slot, okay? And then we don't tell you why. Or maybe we don't even tell you that you don't have a slot. You just come here and then like, oh, I'm not on the schedule, okay. This happens like 3 years in a row and then you're like, what the heck is going on? Well, you've been shadow banned, okay? That's what happened. Yeah. Yeah, well, what's the problem with shadow banning? Because it's beating around the bush. Yeah. But what is beating around the bush? We have to define this too. What is beating around the bush? God says in 2:189, they ask you about the phases of the moon, say, they provide a timing device for the people and determine the time of Hajj. It is not righteous to beat around the bush. Okay? Righteousness is attained by upholding the commandments and by being straightforward. Right? You shall observe God that you may succeed. So it's not being straightforward. And last thing is, we'll go back. Yeah, so if you're shadow banning people, you're not being straightforward. Right? If you don't want somebody to speak, just have the gall to say it. Right? We, as an organization, we have the right. Yo, you are not speaking. I'll put the words in writing. Like we'll paint the sky with it. You know, if you want, we'll tell you you're not going to speak here, and here's why. If you can't do this, right? Perhaps you should reflect on why you're not letting this person speak. If it's such a hard decision, or that's not the right thing to say. If it's such a difficult decision, like should this person speak? Should they not? Maybe it's not time yet to ban them. Or if you can't come out and proclaim it and stand behind it, back it up with verses, back it up with the Quran. Maybe you have no business banning this person from speaking. Just don't shadow ban and don't beat around the bush. Last thing, what not to do, is don't tell people to not judge, okay? We know this, but this is especially bad. Like, without your judgments, you're blind, okay, guys? You're absolutely left blind, okay, without your judgments. We know this is a satanic principle, but it's also an extremely hypocritical one, if you didn't know. Because if I tell you, don't judge, right? I just made a judgment. I just said, my judgment is that you shouldn't judge, except the hypocrisy is thick and obvious, right? It's like, no, it's my judgment that you shouldn't judge, and if you tell me that you can judge, that I judge you guilty, right? That's basically what this is. That's what this is. That's what that is. And I'm pretty sure I have a slide that says, but what is judging? I did. I just gave this, dissect, discern, discriminate, okay? You dissect the issue, you discern the principles, and then you discriminate. Meaning, this isn't like discriminate based on gender or something. It's discriminate. Like you say, this is right, this is wrong. You take the issue, you tear it to pieces, you apply the Quran, and then you say, this is right, this is wrong. This is right, this is wrong. Over and over and over, okay? That is judging, and you should do it all the time, contrary to popular opinion. So here's a proclamation, right? Never drop your judgments, nor dull your senses, okay? This is what Satan wants you to do. Satan wants you to be asleep while you're awake. Satan wants you to die while you're alive, okay? We know the wages of sin is death. He doesn't want you to use your mind. He doesn't want you to do this. He says, 23:78 says, he is the one who grants you the hearing, the eyesight, and the brains. Rarely are you appreciative. Rarely are you appreciative. This is what God tells us. We have to use our senses. 4:105 says, we sent down to you the scripture truthfully in order to judge among the people in accordance with God has shown you. Judge among the people, okay? Judge among the people. It cannot be any more clear than this. Judge among the people. Judge right now. You shall not side with the betrayers. You shall not side with the betrayers, okay? And to end, I have one of my absolute favorite quotes of all time. Oh, wait, no, not yet. Not yet. Sorry, not yet. Not yet. Remember, God says 51:56. Well, this is also an absolute favorite quote of mine. It says, "I did not create the jinns and the humans except to worship me alone." That's what God says. You're not here to please anybody. You're not here to give somebody a platform. You know, people's freedom of speech doesn't, like, you're not the one to uphold that, guys. You're the one to say, what is truth? I'm going to uphold the truth. I'll let the government not oppress me. You know, we don't even have to worry about that in this country. That's the beauty of it. Just leave it alone. Like, you should never, if you ever have to cite a reason for you, like why you should be allowed to speak, freedom of speech is not your reason. Okay, that is not your reason why you should be allowed to speak. Okay, unless you're debating with the local government, stopping you from rallying for a community religious event or something like that. Okay, don't, when you're talking to another private entity. Okay, judge and decide correctly. And here's one of my favorite quotes: "Says in hell there is democracy, and in heaven there is a kingdom of God." Guys, let's enter God's kingdom. MashaAllah.
Okay, so I'm going to start off. There's actually a question on the YouTube, so I'm going to ask it.
Yeah, please.
They said, unbelievers, what about your boss at your job?
So is the question,
yeah.
should you, what? What's the question?
Okay, it says unbelievers. What
Unbelievers.
about your boss at your job?
Oh, if they tell you that you should help them? No. So if you listen to the context, please, I urge everybody to listen. It's Surah 60:61. It's like something with certainty. Just listen. Go to the first 5 minutes. Start at 5 minutes and listen to it. God willing, the context will be abundantly clear to you. He's talking about enemies of God. Okay, he's not just talking about any random disbeliever that you don't help them. No, if just listen to the full context. For the sake of time, I could not play the full context. That's my answer.
So Ashkan is first because he texted me in the middle.
MashaAllah, awesome speech, bro. Loved it. There was, in one of the slides, you wrote, you can side with the disbelievers even though your belief can possibly align with the truth.
Oh.
And I think that was a
said.
contradiction, because every time you start with the disbelievers, your belief will align with falsehood. That's a fact.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, go ahead.
So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah.
But awesome speech, though. Loved it.
Just to respond, I did not. I mean, I know that's what the slide said, but if you read the title, it's talking about reasons you may or may not judge somebody to speak or not to speak. Okay, so it's like if you are allying yourself with disbelievers instead of believers, I'm not advocating you to do that. Don't do that. God says not to do that. Okay, that was the thing. Thank you, though.
So, right here.
Oh.
MashaAllah, good speech. I have a question. It might be, you may answer and you may not. Over the years, I've seen a drastic change in your understanding, and from where you were from a couple of years ago to now. I would just like to see what triggered this change in you to go from being neutral to making a firm stance.
Well, one, because, Arash, thank you. You repeated, I cannot tell you. There was a time, actually, I'll tell you now in front of everybody. There was a time when I pulled up a note on my phone and I started the number of times you were saying, make a firm stand. I'm not joking, that was the thing. And you know, but it's a reminder that I needed to hear. It took me many years, like you said, to go from probably too diplomatic to making a firm stand. And if I earned any sin there, that's mine, and I repent for that. The biggest change, I would say, with what happened to me going from that to making a firm stand is knowledge, okay? And I encourage anybody who's on the fence of any issue between any community that there's a lot of knowledge out there, and again, this is why I say judge and discern. So the more my knowledge grew and the more I applied to Quran, I found that I can't be neutral. So anybody who's out there who's neutral, study your history of submitters, what happened between people, study your Quran, and God willing, you'll come to the correct decision. Is that all?
Yeah. I was just reminded by my good friend Ali here that this is a privilege to speak, so I won't say what I was going to say. I'll go to my backup. how do you, and awesome job, I believe exactly the way you do. What do you say to people that say the verse about we sent down the Quran to judge among the people? They use this, they distort that very clear point, and they say, no, that's for a third-party individual to judge among the disputes of two individuals, not to judge the actions of someone directly. How would you combat that?
Every time I hear one of these arguments, I think of God telling us that the human being is the most argumentative creature. That's what I think of, number one. Over the years, I'd say I think people, you know, sometimes we'll say, you know, you're either with God or with Satan, right? And this is true. This is absolutely true. But you know, any proclamation like that, I've heard people come up with like this absurd third thing, and they argue till the death for it. So the people who say that, first of all, they haven't understood the entirety of the Quran. I would say that when they say, oh, judge among the third party. Which third party is reading the Quran to judge between two believers? Who's that? Who's that person? Show it to me, you know? Maybe there's 5 on earth somewhere, you know? Who knows? God says judge among the people, okay? Judge among the people. Who are the people? Just the third parties? Just the believers? Just the disbelievers? No, God says judge among the people. Let's not abrogate God's words. God says judge among the people. Doesn't say judge among X group of people or Y group of people. Judge among the people. That'd be my answer.
Salam alaikum, over here. Just, you had the list of discern, all those lists about judgment. Is distinguish not on that list for a reason?
No, it's just 3 things that I came up with, and I put it up there.
And then could you go back to the first part of the whole,
Can you click back
that first page? I really appreciated it because that was a pretty profound.
Which one?
The quote about evil and how it dominates. Could you elaborate on that a little bit? That was pretty moving.
Wow, it's like, it takes a while, huh? Oh, you got it? I was almost there, but. Yeah, this. So this is actually not just a symptom between believers. This is a symptom of our society these days, is that we preach this sort of near unconditional tolerance. And I say near because people are, let me tell you, when somebody tells you that you need to be tolerant, they are probably one of the most intolerant people on earth, okay? Let me make this extremely clear to anybody who's listening and anybody who's here. People who tell you to not judge will immediately drop you like a dead weight as soon as you disagree with something that they don't agree with, okay? If these people exist not just within this community of submitters, they also exist within the world. If you say that they're the most tolerant, liberal, nice people, and then you say, I think homosexuality is a sin, they will leave you in an instant, okay? What we are is we are truthful. We are intolerant, okay? We're intolerant of specific things, like things that God tells us not to be tolerant of, and we are forward and straightforward and upfront about it. That's the difference between us and the people. So that's why this quote is here, if that answers your question. Oh.
Just quick, we only have a few minutes, so I'm just
Sure.
taking Shabnam June, Mirwais, and then Genus, and then we're going to move on to the next one. You have a lot of people that want to say stuff.
So, how have they ever mentioned anything that? How do they come to the conclusion, reconcile the fact that God says, "Don't ally yourself"? The believers never ally themselves with disbelievers instead of the believers. If they do so, they're exiled from God. Or the verse that you put up there, where God says that do not side with the betrayers.
Mm-hmm.
So how? And many times we hear from them that we're the hypocrites and we're the disbelievers and all that. So how do they reconcile not judging with observing these commandments of God? And what other method do you know, if they use a different method to figure out that we are hypocrites, for instance, or that who's a disbeliever, so that they won't be able to ally themselves with them? Do they use a different method, or?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is no, they don't. They judge too. It's just, again, as I was answering just a moment ago, like, these people, they're necessarily hypocritical. The statement, don't judge, is impossible. It literally, it contradicts itself as it comes out of your mouth. So it's literally impossible, and that's the short answer for that. MashaAllah, I'll keep it short.
Sarkam, this is my second conference, and the first time I went to a conference was in 2007, and I never went back because people from my community will boycott from speaking. So how do you recommend us to learn from falsehood and distinguish it from falsehood from truthhood if we can't hear them speak?
Thank you. That's a very good question, and that's part of what I really wanted to address here as the first big conference that we're organizing, that we're inviting the community to. That's a part of the reason why I'm giving this speech. And the answer to that is as I was saying, I said reasons to maybe not let people speak or to let them speak, right? The answer kind of lies in there, but it's not a complete list. But the theory of it is important. The big idea behind that is that speeches for platforms are a privilege, and they are, except for this Q&A, it is me promoting something that I believe, whether it's true or not, okay? The discussions between people on who should speak and what is righteous, unrighteous, and at what point does somebody become an enemy of God, these things are reserved for our studies, okay? They're not reserved for here. If somebody wants to, let's say a new topic erupts today, okay? And then 5 people decide they want to give a speech on it. I'd say, my personal thing is that's fine. But then 10 years later, we decided, like we discerned the issue, we judged it. We went through every Quranic verse back and forth, and then people are still promoting the wrong side of this issue. What the community of believers discern to be a wrong side, what is wrong by God, then why let them speak? So the ultimate point is, we decide as a community who's going to speak or not, and we have to be forthcoming about it. We can't just let this shadow banning stuff, this like beating around the bush. No, we're going to tell you, and if we're wrong, we'll pay for it, most likely, right? We'll pay for it. And if we're wrong, come tell us we're wrong, and we'll discuss it. I have never in my life in the San Jose community have had or heard in any topic which was not allowed to be discussed. I have never heard people put down in a way like where no, you're not allowed to speak about this, right? This has never ever happened. We discuss every topic every time, and we discuss it to death, and that's how we know. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your speak, Eunice. I just had a general comment. It's about all the speeches,
Sure.
and when it comes to the slides, I just wanted to say we have to be very careful that even our slides represent the Quran very well. For yours, just the last slide where it was depicting the angels, I just thought that it didn't represent the Quran because they're in human form and they're all females. So it was just making me a little uncomfortable.
It was male.
And
I did actually.
That's in general. And I know Solomon, where he had the slide for Trump comparing him to, I don't know what it was, fuzzy something.
Moth. Right.
So he took that back. So I just wanted to say.
Okay. I'll rescind the previous slide. Yeah, I should. It was actually a male angel though, but I mean angels don't have gender in my opinion.
I'm cutting you off, Eunice. I'm
Thank
sorry.
you.
Okay, so thank you guys. So, mashallah. Okay, so we're gonna do really quick
announcements.
Some announcements, and we have quick talk.
Sure. Okay.
So we're gonna have Nujrat wanted to say something, God willing, really quick. So we're gonna have her just do speak. And then we're going to do some announcements, and God willing, then maybe wait-listed if we have time, and then closing remarks, God willing.
Oh, I have to hold this?
Well, you can just clip it to your pants or something.
Or here?
Well, then you can't move anymore.
Okay, maybe I should move.
You can just.
Yeah. Because I have one in one hand, this, and then.
You don't have to hold it. It has a clip, so you can clip it to your.
Oh, okay,
Yep.
okay. I don't have a pocket. Okay.
okay. You can just like.
Okay. Let's see. Come on. This is hard. Yeah, mashallah. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Praise be to God, Lord of the universe. What a beautiful experience. I did not prepare anything, but mashallah, I'm so overwhelmed, overjoyed to be here. God has provided this opportunity. It was something in making for a long time, but God knows what is the best time when we all are on the same page. Alhamdulillah. I really congratulate to all the organizers of San Jose community. Wonderful, striving community that is. Amazing, amazing, mashallah. Praise be to God from now, because we are the first community, this is the first generation moving forward with a lot of experiments, and we don't know, we don't have any set up example in front of us, except yes, best examples are in the Quran, but different times. Now the message has been solidified, purified, and sort of there must be some experiments not going so well. Some work, some don't work, but God will guide us, inshallah. God guides the sincere. All teachings, all guidance comes from God. And due to the new technological era, mashallah, physical communities are not restrained to one little community which used to be by the sea, and the fish came and didn't come. Mashallah, we are global. Look at some people are from UK here, Toronto, Canada, other places. Praise be to God. That one element brought us here together is that truth. Truth solidifies us, brings us together, unites us. Falsehood and fake stuff or different opinions go the other directions. There are many directions. So always, because God even tells us in Quran that those who hate the truth or go against it, their Qibla even doesn't match with each other or it's not the same. They might hate each other, but they hate you more. So that unites them, but that unity does not last. It won't last longer. Anyhow, every soul is here in this world for their own redemption and their own purification. It's God's bonus that He provided us with communities. We gotta be very, very appreciative. We should never become proud, because there are always more to learn. More we learn, more humble we should become. That one day we might not even have to fight, and be angry, like, listen to my point. Because when you feel, when there is oppression, there is frustration. And you do feel oppressed when your faith is being challenged, constantly. You believe in something, you're saying, this is my faith, I believe Quran says this, and somebody else challenges you, so emotions are crashing. And by the way, I'm a very emotional person. If a lot of people know that, but I'm working on it. Like Moses, I pray to cool my temper, my Lord. And when there is no oppression, there is more peace and contentment and more serenity. Then you won't be wasting your emotions on just bickering and fighting people. You will be more in tune with your inner self, your soul, more freedom, more people are like you, and like Rashad said in a video, that those souls are embracing each other, they're hugging each other, That means positive energy coming to souls, souls grow. When there is negative and positive constantly, negative wants to suck the positive. That's the rule. Remember, you might notice if you're in a company of some disbelievers, when you come out of the room, you're drained. I feel that way. I'm like, what the heck? This was a loss of my energy, Okay, so I'm just quickly going to read these wonderful verses from the Quran that we should be focusing on from now on. Inshallah, that's what at least I feel. So, praise God. So we all know how special Abraham was. You know, beautiful example of a human being God has put in the Quran. So when he was raising the shrine, these are the 4 verses I'm going to read from the Quran, mashallah. Auzubillahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. As Abraham raised the foundations of the shrine together with Ishmael, they prayed, "Our Lord, accept this from us. You are the hearer, the omniscient. Our Lord, make us submitters to you, and from our descendants let there be a community of submitters to you. Teach us the rights of the religion and redeem us. You are the Redeemer, most merciful." Who would forsake the religion of Abraham except one who fools his own soul? We have chosen him in this world, and in the hereafter he will be with the righteous. When his Lord said to him, "Submit," he said, "I submit to the Lord of the universe." Very simple. Abraham's religion, God says, who would forsake that? So inshallah, every community can raise a shrine of righteousness, a mosque of righteousness, and ask God to make us humble, accepting of each other personal weaknesses or whatnot, but never ever compromise on your religion and faith. Thank you so much for having us here.
Thank you. I just wanted to give a quick, big thank you and shout out to the tech team, because it was way more than him, but the sound was on point. All of this that you see did not come with the hotel. It was rented out, top notch, top quality. They went out of their way. They bought extra tools, this little stand thing. Eunice went, late at night after the speeches were done, because they have to sit here to Best Buy and early in the morning to get, okay, this equipment, we need it. It's going to make it look better, more pristine. Live streaming was crystal clear. I heard it was even more clear than in person. We had people in London staying up until midnight just to watch the speeches, or waking up at dawn just to watch our speeches. So we may have seen only the people in this room, but we reached a lot more than this by God's grace. And yeah. And just think about the fact that the tech team had to sit here from the beginning to the end. They didn't take breaks. I didn't see you guys take bathroom breaks even. I didn't. I was thinking about it. They didn't get to take the 2 hours for dinner and take a nap, go take some pictures outside. Yesterday we were streaming for 15 hours, and it's because of their hard work and dedication, by God's grace. Shamnam wanted to say something?
So first I want to say about the youth that went to, well, not the youth anymore, went to Tucson. You know, I'm sure everybody here has somehow witnessed that they were a lot vocal this year from people who went there. Did you witness that they were very vocal? Tucson, and the people who supported them. So, this had never happened before, okay? Because like zebras, they were fleeing from the lions when the older generation went there. You guys went there and established yourselves as lions. Because when you went there first, they thought you were just little cubs, okay? Just following your parents, okay? But now they realize that, no, you too are lions, okay? And mashallah, that's... So now, any guesses how many people attended the conference? Okay, so we had 175 people, 177 registered to get their tickets. 3 didn't show up. And then we kept on adding people. People kept on adding in. Counting the youngest, Leon. Tell the oldest, me, okay. Any guesses? 199. Mashallah. You add up the digits, it's 19. God grants victory to the believers. Mashallah. Congratulations to all of you.
Okay, mashallah. And then a quick message from, I think Solomon wants to give it on behalf.
So I also wanted to read from the community in London. Actually, Brother Jamal, they wasn't able to make it, and some other believers. And they just wanted me to send a shout out from the UK community that have been watching and following everything since Friday, and they loved it and loved it and loved it. And I mean, after like every single speech, like I've been getting like so many different messages from them. They're enjoying it very much. And I just wanted to add, mashallah, that I mean, this is the way God planned it when it came to the dates for the conference. We just ended up having this conference on the 4th, 5th, and 6th of August. And this happened to be 4, 5, 6 is a multiple of 19. My God's leave, mashallah.
Hossein Arash. Oh, no. Okay, then just you two.
Listen, everyone who's waitlisted, who else is it? No, yeah. Okay, so Fernan, you go first. Arash, you're gonna go next, and then I'm gonna go. We got 5 minutes each because we have 15 minutes extra. Okay, so Fernan, go ahead. We're gonna do just a very brief version of the speeches we were gonna give, God willing, and I think, yeah. And you know, we're going to go 5 minutes each and then leave Elena with at least 20 minutes to give her closing remarks. We're going to stay until the noon prayer anyway, God willing, and that's going to be at 1:15, and that's why we have a couple of extra minutes. So.
Okay, I have slides, but it's fine. It's okay. You guys want to see my really bad slides? Okay. I'm just kidding. I did, and I made you open it, remember? Okay. Yeah, no, it's okay. Okay, so I have some funny things about this speech. So I thought I wrote my speech on right of interpretation. I'm going to have to hop back and forth because I need to read my laptop, though. But so I thought I was going to do a right of interpretation. Then I look at the program that Hossein and Serena and a bunch of other submitters worked on, and it said personal opinion. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, did I say personal opinion? And then so I started writing my speech about personal opinion. And then I look at my notes that I had before, and it said right of interpretation. So I was like, oh, okay, maybe it was. But it's all right. I mixed it together a little bit. So it's still personal opinion. Okay. I will just start anyway on, okay, so personal opinion. So what is personal opinion? We got this guy who's giving his personal opinion. He says, I don't care about issues. I've got better things to do than argue with every wrong-headed crackpot with an ignorant opinion. I'm a busy man. This is wrong, right? We shouldn't have an opinion like that. Oh, no, this is Calvin and Hobbes. Is by Bill Watterson. It's a great, well, okay, it's not really, it's an interesting comic because this kid is like the worst kid ever. Like, this is not a submitting kid. Every single problem that you can think of, this kid will try to weasel and do everything bad. but it's interesting. Okay, so what is personal opinion? I'm going to do like everyone else and give some definitions. So personal means, affecting to belong to a particular person, so yourself. And opinion means a view or judgment formed by something that's not necessarily based on fact or knowledge. So I'm writing this to voice my opinion on a great issue of importance. Sorry, I'm at an angle, so it's kind of weird. Okay, so opinion versus fact. So opinion is a statement that holds an element of belief. It tells how someone feels. An opinion is not always true and cannot be proven. Fact. So fact is a statement that is true and can be verified objectively or proven. In other words, a fact is true and correct no matter what. Okay, so let's read some verses. I'm not going to read them because I don't have time, but personal opinion mentioned in the Quran. I'm going to mention the story of David, and also I will read Surah 6, verse 119. Basically for David, God says, do not follow your personal opinion. And in Surah 6, verse 119, it says, why should you not eat from which God's name has been mentioned? He has detailed for you what is prohibited for you unless you enforce. Indeed, many people mislead others with their personal opinions without knowledge. Your Lord is fully aware of the transgressors. Now, I wanted to focus on the part where it says without knowledge, because I was thinking about this for a while. Knowledge is very interesting to me because, I'll explain. Knowledge comes only from God. So, no one, I'm going to just read the part where I highlighted here in Surah 2, verse 255. It says, no one attains any knowledge except as he wills. So the example of Adam, okay, this is really cool to me. I was really thinking about this. So when the story with Adam, God taught Adam all the names, then presented to the angels saying, give me the names of these if you are right. And then the angels said, be you glorified. We have no knowledge except that which you have taught us. You are the omniscient, most wise. And then he said, oh, Adam, tell them their names. When he told them their names, he said, did I not tell you that I know the secrets of the heavens and the earth? I know what you declare and what you conceal. And then the footnote says the names of these are the animals, the automobiles, the submarine, all the things that we're going to encounter here. So even the angels didn't know. And we don't know anything as well. Only God is the one that knows everything. So what does this mean? God is the one who grants knowledge to whomever he wills. Knowledge is how we can see the truth. Okay? So Surah 10, verse 36. Most of them know nothing but conjecture, and conjecture there is no substitute for the truth. God is fully aware of everything they do. Without knowledge, we follow conjecture, aka our personal opinion. God bestows his knowledge to whomever he wills. In Surah 3, verse 7, I'm going to read just the highlighted part. None knows the true meaning there. Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, let me read the whole thing. Okay. He says, he sent down to you the scripture containing straightforward verses, which constitute the essence of the scripture, as well as multiple meaning or allegorical verses. Those who harbor doubts in their hearts will pursue the multiple meaning verses to create confusion and to extricate a certain meaning. None knows the true meaning thereof except God and those well-founded in knowledge. They say we believe in this. All of it comes from our Lord. Only those who possess intelligence will take heed. I love this verse. It's awesome. Okay, so who are those well-founded in knowledge? How do we know when our personal opinions coincide with the truth? Dude doesn't know. Okay, God tells us in the Quran. Messengers, for example. Okay, the message that all of God's messengers bring is the same. And it all comes from the same source, God. Okay, some people, I've encountered this a lot online and stuff like that, where they always want to make it seem like the messenger is giving his personal opinion. And that, everyone has their own opinion, and, how do you know if it's the the truth? So the views on this regard to the message being delivered, it says, the first is messengers are speaking their personal opinion and can be wrong. And then the second view is messengers do not speak on their own. They don't speak their personal opinion. Surah 21, verse 27. And we also know from the example of David, God even tells him, do not follow your personal opinion. So when our personal opinion coincides with the truth, there's no contradictions. Our lives get better, okay? Because we're following God's law. So the truth, it's fact. It's correct no matter what. Let us be sincere and, God willing, make sure our understandings always coincide with the truth. So Surah 2, verse 42. Do not confound the truth with falsehood, nor shall you conceal the truth knowingly. Okay, and that was the end of my slides, but I have a few more verses I wanted to read. Actually, let me just go back so you guys can keep going. Okay, so this is really important to me. I wanted to read the verses 146 through 148. It says, those who receive the scripture recognize the truth therein, as they recognize their own children. Yet some of them conceal the truth knowingly. This is the truth from your Lord. Do not harbor any doubt. Each of you chooses the direction to follow. You shall race towards righteousness. Wherever you may be, God will summon you all. God is omnipotent. So when it says that this is the truth, and the messengers bring the truth, all we have to say is we hear and we obey. And then I wanted to finish with this because I don't have a lot of time and I have more, but okay. So I'm just going to finish with this verse because I think it sums it up very nicely. Surah 5, verse 83. When they hear what was revealed to the messenger, you see their eyes flooding with tears as they recognize the truth therein. And they say, our Lord, we have believed and count us among the witnesses. Ali, it's okay.
Okay, so I'm not going to give a speech, but I'll share my speech. Where's Elena? Oh, there you are. Come on up. I just want to say, when we're done here, we're going to go into the other room to do our noon prayer, God willing. And then after the noon prayer, we really need to be out of here. So take your personal belongings with you. Go to the park for lunch. Make sure you're checked out of the hotel. We have to do our pictures in the park. Yeah, because we just... Or on the grounds, but we need to get out of the conference room, that's all, okay? So I'll share my speech on Slack, inshallah, and hand it off to Elena. No, it's totally fine, yeah, God is doing everything.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So, I want to thank each of you for taking the time to come to the conference this year. We know that God rewards the strivers for doing any kind of work that, we use to worship and glorify God. And I feel so honored to be surrounded by so many believing souls, especially over this past weekend. I mean, it's truly, you could feel the energy compared to, other times that we've been at conferences, and it's such an honor, praise God. And, mashallah. And we learn from the Quran that what unites each of us together is our unwavering devotion to God alone, right? All of us are here because we want to please God, we want to worship God, and we want to do nothing to ever go against that. And Surah 2, verse 213 says, God guides those who believe to the truth that is disputed by all others, in accordance with this will. God guides whoever wills in a straight path. And the footnote says, all worshippers of God alone from all religions are truly united. But by divine decree, the believers are part of one eternal family. And that's in Surah 49, verse 10. This means that whoever believes in God, believes in the hereafter, and leads a righteous life is our real family. This is not blind love. Our guide is the Quran. Look at all the different ages and generations in this room. We have grandparents, parents, adults, adolescents, children, and babies. All of them grew their souls by being here and glorifying God over this past weekend. And I love how the parents included their children in this experience and enjoined them to worship God. We know that if you enjoin your family to worship God as God commands us to do, God will do his part in making sure the children will be believers. We just have to do it on our end, and God will do his part. Let us take the time to appreciate and thank God for giving us this past weekend full of soul growth. Without God, none of this would have been possible. And he is the one who grants us these opportunities for us to feed our souls, the real person, as a gift. God gives us these opportunities as a gift because he knows that we want to please him. And so when we have these opportunities, this is a gift from God. I pray for all of us to remain guided on the right path and for God to direct us to do righteous works that are pleasing to him. As stated by Solomon in Surah 27, verse 19, my Lord, direct me to be appreciative of the blessings you have bestowed upon me and my parents, and to do the righteous works that please you. Admit me by your mercy into the company of your righteous servants. I would like to clarify that this is not San Jose's conference. This is not the Bay Area's conference. This conference belongs to every believer, to God alone. Masha. Masha. So on that note, feel free to give back any feedback for what you liked and what you think should be improved, because it is your conference. And if you'd like to participate in the organization for next year, please let us know, which I would love to see all of you at again, God willing. And in general, I want to know what you guys thought about this venue. If, you know, for example, next year, if we want to do another location like in Southern California, Northern California, or keep it here. I see Aliaga back there. Sacramento. Okay, and then right now we're going to do our prayer, I believe, and then after that we want to do, yeah, I know. So right now we want to do our prayer, God willing, and then we're going to do some great group photos. We have to be out of this conference room, like Ali said, so we want to go, I think, after the prayer up on the lawn in front of the venue. That would be a really, really nice picture, but we just have to all make sure that we go at the same time because it is hot, and let's not stay up there too long. And then pizza is going to be at 2 o'clock, I believe, in the park across from the venue. And then just a reminder to everyone, tonight is our Sunday Quran study at the Masjid in San Jose from 6 to 9 o'clock. All of you are invited. I hope to see you all there, inshallah. And lastly, thank you and God bless my believing family for being here. I like to end this with an al-Fatihah to thank God the Almighty for allowing us to have an amazing time with the believers. Thank you, mashallah. Al-Fatihah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta alayhim. And one last thing, Arash found out I was giving the closing remarks, and he said, please give me 1 of your minutes, please. I want to just say something. So Arash, come say whatever you want to say. 1 minute. Arash is my husband, for those who don't, everyone knows.
Wait. You guys really didn't think that I wasn't going to come on this stage, at least at one point at the conference. Just real quick, 1 minute. Just want to say the tremendous energy that I think we all felt over this past weekend was just out of this ballpark. I mean, truly, I haven't felt like this for a very long time. The energy, the atmosphere, the speeches, truly you can... Just how there's gravity, guys. We're sitting down and, you don't see it, but you know it's there. But you lift your feet up and the other one's grounded to the floor. It's the same thing. You feel the energy within the rooms of true believers. True believers are a rare commodity. And we need to be, this deserves a lot of congratulations to every single one of us that devote ourselves to God alone, because truly, true believers are a rare breed. So we have no idea how blessed we are. So God bless you all. It was a pleasure.
And please give a round of applause for everyone that helped make this happen by God's leave. Ali and everyone else, you know who you are, the tech team. I have to go on the camera. Let's give a round of applause to all the people that made this happen. Thank you, God. All right, thank you, guys. Let's pray, inshallah.
God bless everybody that has joined us.
Oh, wait, really
YouTube
quick. Don't forget,
and
you guys can leave actual notes for feedback in the corner. There's a little bowl with a notepad and pen. please, if you want to, leave some feedback there. We're also going to have feedback via email and Slack. So if you guys don't do that, this is just for people who want to do it now, inshallah.
All right, for the boys, the men, if you actually believe you're strong and you want to prove to your wives or future possible wives that you can do things, we need help moving stuff ASAP. So please.
Please. We're already late.
Our original plan was to be out of this room, including all of our equipment, unpacked and out by 1. So if you can help with this, with the speakers and the large equipment here, it would be great. No, no, thank you. Mashallah, thank you.
Okay. God bless everyone that joined us online. We are ending this stream. That's the end of the conference. God bless you and see you next year, inshallah.